Chapter 3186. Prepare. Zhuan waved his hand and said indifferently, I want all of your quiet Sun Divine City's jade stones. Qi Gaoming's eyes dimmed. Although he was unwilling, he had no choice but to obey Zhuowen's orders. After all, he was now Zhuowen's follower. I know what you're worried about. You should be worried that the quiet Sun Divine City will lose its jade stones energy supply and the formation will fail. At that time, the city will fall into chaos, right? Zhuan asked. Qi Gaoming nodded lightly and lowered his head, not saying a word. Although he was now Zhuowen's follower, he still felt uncomfortable with Zhuowen's ruthlessness. The jade stones are of great use to me. You don't have to worry about the quiet Sun Divine City's formation, leave it to me. I will use the Heavenly Tao origin crystals to set up even more powerful formations. Moreover, I will give you enough Heavenly Tao origin crystals, no less than your jade stones. Zhuowen said indifferently. Immortal Master Zhuo, you have Heavenly Tao origin crystals? How is that possible? Qi Gaoming's pupils shrank as he asked in surprise. Zhuowen did not say a word. He waved his sleeve and took out a pile of Heavenly Tao origin crystals from the outside world. When Qi Gaoming saw the Heavenly Tao origin crystals appear in front of him, he rubbed his eyes, thinking that he had seen wrongly. He was too familiar with Zhuowen's action just now. It was the action of taking something out of a spatial artifact. In other words, the young man he followed could freely open his own spatial artifact in the Massacre Heavenly Domain. I think you have guessed it. My spatial artifact can be opened, and I have enough Heavenly Tao origin crystals in it. Are you still worried about the quiet Sun Divine City's formation? Zhuowen said indifferently. Qi Gaoming hurriedly bowed and said, Lord Zhuo, I was ignorant. I hope Lord Zhuo doesn't mind. Qi Gaoming was far inferior to Zhuowen's ability to open his spatial artifact. At this moment, Qi Gaoming was truly convinced by Zhuowen. Qi Gaoming also changed his address from Immortal Master Zhuo to Lord Zhuo. 10 days later, I will follow you to the quiet Sun Divine City. After I'm done with the matters in the quiet Sun Divine City, I will venture into the Forbidden Land and search for a way to leave the Massacre Heavenly Domain. Zhuowen said. Qi Gaoming's gaze shook as he said, Lord Zhuo, are you planning to barge into the Forbidden Zone? That is very dangerous. Qi Gaoming wanted to continue persuading Zhuowen's plan to stop. Brother Qi, my goal is to go to the Primitive Heaven Domain, but I accidentally entered the Slaughter Heaven Domain. If I didn't have anything important to do, I wouldn't be in such a hurry, but I have something very important to do, so I have to leave the Slaughter Heaven Domain. Zhuowen's gaze was cautious. He was naturally going to the Great Desolate Heaven Domain to find Mu Chenxue. Although he knew that Mu Chenxue's life was not in danger among the Phoenix people, he also knew that the longer Mu Chenxue stayed among the Phoenix people, the greater the risk. Qi Gaoming stopped abruptly. He saw the determination in Zhuowen's eyes and knew that it was useless to say anything more. He was a little worried. If Zhuowen really went to barge into the forbidden area and died in the end, wouldn't he, as a follower, become useless? After that, Yuan gave some instructions to Qi Gaoming and the others and announced that the meeting was adjourned. He planned to gather with Qi Gaoming and the others 10 days later and head to the quiet Sun Divine City. After the meeting, Meiying brought Zhuowen to the treasury of the City Lord's mansion. Immortal Master Zhuo, according to your request, the 2 million emerald stones from the quiet Sun Divine City are in this treasury. Meiying opened the door and pointed at the treasury. City Lord Meiying, thank you for your hard work. Before leaving the Massacre Heavenly Domain, I will refine some divine pills for you to raise your cultivation. Zhuowen said in a deep voice. Meiying was overjoyed and quickly cupped her fists to express her gratitude. When Zhuowen promised Qi Gaoming that he could help her break through to the middle stage of the Tongtian Master Realm, Meiying was moved. If it wasn't for her reservations, she might have directly become Zhuowen's follower at that time. However, Meiying could see that Zhuowen had no intention of accepting her as a follower. But now, Zhuowen actually promised to concoct an Earth God pill for her to raise her cultivation level. In fact, he was intending to help her raise her cultivation level. Immortal Master Zhuo, I didn't do anything. I just asked you to refine some divine pills for me to raise my cultivation level. Mei Ying said embarrassedly. Zhuan waved his hand and said, City Lord Mei Ying, you have helped me a lot. You don't have to be so courteous with me. Moreover, if I successfully leave the massacre heavenly domain, I don't know when I will come back again. This is my farewell gift to you. Mei Ying's beautiful eyes were filled with gratitude and she nodded her head heavily. This is the Yuan Spirit Concealing Pill. Give it to Miss Mei Su and Uncle Jiang. They should wake up soon. Zhuan took out 2 Yuan Spirit Concealing Pills and handed them to Mei Ying. Then he entered the treasury. Mei Ying looked at the closed door and bowed deeply. Then she hurriedly left with the 2 Yuan Spirit Concealing Pills. She couldn't wait to feed Mei Su and Jiang Yi the first Yuan Concealing Spirit Treasure Pill. After entering the treasury, Yuan saw a shocking amount of jade stones. He took out the mysterious stone. The stone quickly pounced on the jade stones and violently absorbed the jade stones' energy. The entire treasury was filled with the rich energy of the jade stones. Zhuan waited for half an hour before the mysterious stone finally finished absorbing all the jade stones in the treasury. With a wave of his right hand, the mysterious stone returned to his palm. He saw that the patterns on the stone surface had already spread to 2/3 of the stone's surface. In the gloomy treasury, the patterns on the mysterious stone's surface emitted a translucent white light, illuminating the entire stone room. Zhuowen looked at the mysterious patterns that covered 2/3 of the stone's surface. He had an inexplicable feeling in his heart. The moment these patterns completely covered the stone, this mysterious stone would undergo a shocking transformation. A mysterious and profound energy came from the mysterious stone and spread from Zhuowen's palm to his entire body. Zhuan sat cross-legged on the ground. After setting up a temporary formation around him, he wholeheartedly immersed himself in this state of epiphany. This time, he was not comprehending the Tao of pills and arrays, but the Tao of cultivation. His cultivation base had already reached the peak of the Eternal Overlord realm. With this epiphany, he would break through the Eternal Overlord realm and officially enter the 3rd step of Tao validation. Time passed minute by minute. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. Outside the treasury, Qi Gaoming and Zhou Xiuwei were already waiting, fully equipped and ready to go. They looked at the treasury and worriedly asked Mei Ying, City Lord Mei Ying, why hasn't Lord Zhuo come out yet? 10 days have passed and he still hasn't come out of seclusion. Wait a little longer. Since Immortal Master Zhuo said he would come out in 10 days, he will definitely keep his promise, Mei Ying said in a low voice. Beside Mei Ying, Mei Su and Jiang Yi looked at the treasury's door with a chessboard expression. Boom! Chapter 3187. Stepping into the 3rd step of Tao verification, a vast aura erupted and the entire Dark Rock Divine City shook violently. The treasury of the City Lord Mansion had already turned into a pile of rubble. In the sky above Dark Rock Divine City, the clouds changed color as they poured down in torrents. Bolts of lightning intertwined and flickered in the dark clouds like lightning dragons faintly discernible within. The terrifying heavenly might shrouded the entire Dark Rock Divine City. Many living beings in the city looked at the countless bolts of lightning in the sky and trembled in fear. Rumble! A bolt of lightning as thick as a towering tree descended from the sky and emitted a mysterious purple light. It landed on the ruins of the treasury and exploded. Mei Ying and the rest couldn't help but look at the spot where the purple lightning landed. There, a figure stood upright like a pine tree and his body emitted a strong crystal light. Mei Ying and the rest were no strangers to this figure. It was Zhuan. At this moment, Zhuan was like a god of war. He stood in the same spot and was not afraid of the terrifying purple lightning. Bang! The purple lightning blasted into Zhuo Wen's body, instantly causing countless purple sparks to explode. The electric arcs spread throughout the entire space like countless silk threads. Mei Ying and the rest didn't dare to get too close. They kept retreating with fear in their eyes. Mei Su was pulled back by Mei Ying. Her beautiful eyes were filled with worry, especially when the purple lightning struck Zhuo. She even screamed out loud. The electric arcs dissipated and a huge crater appeared where Zhuan was. In the middle of the crater, Zhuan slowly climbed up. His body was crystal clear as if it was carved out of jade. Mei Ying and the rest were dumbfounded. What kind of physical body did this guy have? Everyone clearly saw how terrifying the power of the purple thunderbolt was. Yet, this guy was completely fine. The moment the purple thunderbolt appeared, Mei Ying had already made a rough estimation. If she were to resist it with her physical body, she would definitely be severely injured, although she would not be killed immediately. City Lord, Immortal Master Zhua seems to be going through the heavenly tribulation of the third step of Tao verification, the Creator Realm, right? Great Guardian Ing Jie stood beside Mei Ying. His face was pale and his eyes were filled with disbelief. This was because he had never seen such a terrifying heavenly tribulation of a creator before. Back then he had also advanced to the God of Creation stage, but compared to Zhuowen's tribulation, it was practically insignificant. It was not even worth mentioning. Mei Ying nodded solemnly. She finally understood why Zhuowen's strength was so terrifying even though his cultivation was not high. This guy was a monster that could not be judged by common sense. Rumble. Another purple lightning bolt that was not weaker than the first one fell from the sky. Yun was not afraid at all. He leaped up and met the terrifying purple lightning head-on. Bang bang bang. Following that, more and more terrifying purple thunderbolts descended from the sky, one after another, becoming more and more terrifying and intense. Yun withstood the attack with his Pangu sacred body. Although the process was very painful, Zhuowen's eyes were filled with excitement. Although the earth tribulation of the third step of Tao verification was terrifying, the energy it contained was extremely rich. While Zhuowen withstood the terrifying lightning tribulation with his Pangu sacred body, he was also absorbing the rich energy in the lightning tribulation. His Pangu sacred body was also constantly strengthening. Bang! When Zhuowen withstood the last lightning bolt, he fell from the sky in a sorry state. However, he was smiling and he was smiling very excitedly. After absorbing the last lightning bolt, his Pangu sacred body had advanced from the late 6th star realm to the peak 6th star realm. Congratulations, Immortal Master Zhua. You have successfully advanced to the Creator Realm. Mei Ying led Mei Su, Jiang Yi, and the others forward to congratulate Zhuowen. Qi Gaoming and Zhou Xiuwei did not lag behind. They also went forward to congratulate Zhuowen with warm smiles on their faces. Zhuowen nodded slightly. Then he looked at Mei Su and Jiang Yi, who were beside Mei Ying, and said with a smile, "Miss Mei Su, Uncle Jiang, you are awake." Mei Su and Jiang Yi hurriedly cupped their fists at Zhuowen. Jiang Yi said gratefully, "Immortal Master Zhua, I can't thank you enough. Jiang Yi will always remember your life-saving grace. As long as Immortal Master Zhua needs me in the future, I'll do anything for you." Yun helped Mei Su and Jiang Yi up and said with a smile, "Miss Mei Su, Uncle Jiang, you are too kind. It was all thanks to you that I was able to find the emerald or vein in the Death Valley. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to find so many emerald ores." Zhuowen could clearly feel that Mei Su and Jiang Ye's attitude towards him was completely different from before. They were much more cautious and reserved. He knew that the two of them must have heard from Mei Ying about the things that had happened to him recently. Therefore, they were a little estranged from him. However, Zhuowen didn't mind. After chatting with Mei Ying and the others for a while, Zhuowen walked towards Qi Gaoming and Zhou Xiuwei. "Brother Qi, Brother Zhou, let's go to the Quiet Sun Divine City. Don't worry, after we arrive at the Quiet Sun Divine City, I will first set up your city's array formations before we go to the mining area." Zhuowen said, "Many thanks, Lord Zhua." Qi Gaoming and Zhou Xiuwei quickly bowed. After that, Zhuowen bid farewell to Mei Ying and the others. Together with Qi Gaoming and Zhou Xiuwei, they mounted their dragon horses and left the Dark Rock Divine City. The distance between the Dark Rock Divine City and the Quiet Sun Divine City was not very far. The three of them rode their dragon horses at full speed, and it only took them 7 days to reach the Quiet Sun Divine City. As soon as they entered the Quiet Sun Divine City, Yun followed his promise and modified the city's array formations. He also replaced the jade stone in the city's array formations with heavenly Tao origin crystals. After that, Yun asked Qi Gaoming for a map of the Quiet Sun Divine City's various mining areas and hurriedly left the city. There were a total of 8 mining areas in the Quiet Sun Divine City, and Zhuowen started from the nearest mining area. The mysterious stone absorbed the jade stone at an extremely fast speed, but even so, it still took Zhuowen more than half a month to absorb the jade stone from the 7 mining areas in the quiet Sun Divine City. The jade stone reserves in the 7 mining areas were indeed abundant, but the mysterious stone required an enormous amount of jade stone energy. Even after absorbing the jade stone from the 7 mining areas, it still wasn't enough for the mysterious stone to be completely covered by the mysterious stone. Zhuowen arrived at the last mining area, which was the largest mining area in the quiet Sun Divine City. It was also the most recently discovered mineral vein in the quiet Sun Divine City. It was said to be a huge mineral vein, and the jadestone reserves inside were more than 1 million jadestone. As soon as Zhuowen entered the mining area, he could feel the rich jadestone energy inside. Zhuowen stood at the entrance of the mining area and took out the mysterious stone. Like a bolt of lightning, the mysterious stone rushed into the dark depths of the mining area. Zhuowen did not follow in, but stood silently at the entrance of the mining area, waiting. He knew that the mysterious stone would come out after absorbing all the jadestone. Chapter 3188. Torch Dragon's Eye. In the gloomy mine, Zhuowen was like a gust of wind, constantly passing through. Zhuowen furrowed his brows more and more as he passed through the mine. He discovered that it was just too quiet in the mine. Moreover, the jade-green stones in the surrounding mine were completely undamaged. In other words, the mysterious stone did not absorb the jadeite in the mine at all. But how could this be? In the past, as long as the mysterious stone entered the jadeite mine, it would be like a cat that smelled fish and could not wait to absorb the jadeite in the mine. But now, it did not even touch the jadeite in the mine. Could it be that there was something in the depths of the mine that was attracting the mysterious stone? Thinking of this, Zhuowen sped up and went deeper into the mine. Soon he arrived at the end of the mine. With the help of the green light emitted by the jadeite, he saw that in the bottom left corner of the deepest part of the mine, there was a bottomless hole. To Zhuowen's surprise, the hole was emitting a blazing light. And the strange thing was that this blazing light only stopped in the hole and did not spread to the mine. It was as if there was a mysterious force at the entrance of the hole that was blocking the blazing light in the depths of the hole. Zhuowen guessed that the mysterious stone should have entered the hole. However, he was a little vigilant. He felt that the light in the hole was really strange. After hesitating for a while, Zhuowen decided to enter the hole to take a look. The mysterious stone was very important to him, so he naturally could not just leave it alone. Moreover, he had a feeling that when the lines on the surface of the mysterious stone were completely covered, it would undergo a transformation. To him, it was very likely to be a great fortune. It was because this feeling was too strong that Zhuowen attached great importance to the mysterious stone. After carefully observing the entrance of the hole, Zhuowen found that the entrance was not blocked by any formation or other energy, so he directly entered the hole. The moment he entered the hole, a strong white light immediately rushed into Zhuowen's eyes, forcing Zhuowen to close his eyes involuntarily. After a long time, Zhuowen opened his eyes with difficulty. However, the light in the cave was too strong, and Zhuowen could only squint his eyes. His vision was blurry, and he could barely make out the general direction of the path ahead. Zhuowen strode forward along the passage in front of him. At the same time, his muscles tightened, revealing the majesty of the Pangu's sacred body. This cave was too strange. He couldn't be sure if something dangerous would come out and attack him. However, as he continued to move forward, Zhuowen gradually relaxed his vigilance as no danger appeared in the cave. When Zhuowen landed on the ground, he found that he was in a huge karst cave. And in this karst cave, the most conspicuous thing was the incomparably huge stone pillar in the center. At the top of the stone pillar, there were 2 bright balls. The 2 balls were not small in size. They were about the size of a human head. The scorching light in the entire karst cave and the underground cave came from the 2 balls. At the same time, Zhuowen saw the mysterious stone. The mysterious stone was floating on the 2 balls at the top of the stone pillar. It was looking at the 2 balls in a human-like manner and circling around them. Zhuowen squinted his eyes, revealing a bewildered look. He could feel the aura of the wizard ancestor from these 2 balls. Are these 2 eyeballs? And they are the eyes of the wizard ancestor? Zhuowen muttered in a low voice. This pair of eyes that were like the scorching sun caused him to recall the candle dragon of the 12 grand shamans. The candle dragon had another name, which was the candle dragon. It was in the form of a human face and a snake body. In the north of Chishui, there was Zhangwei Mountain. There was a god with a human face and a snake body. Its eyes were bright. It was the candle dragon, the so-called candle dragon. It was said that the candle dragon's eyes could control time and the flow of time. Even among the 12 wizard ancestors, it was an extremely powerful and terrifying existence. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. Was the mysterious stone interested in the candle dragon's eyes? Of course, Zhuowen was also very surprised that he could see the candle dragon's eyes here. Does that mean that Grand Shaman Candle Dragon is in the slaughter heavenly domain? Zhuowen rushed to the top of the stone pillar and looked at the huge eyeball in front of him. To his surprise, the candle dragon's eyes rolled a few times when he came and stared at him. At this moment, Zhuowen only felt that the surrounding time and space seemed to be collapsing. An indescribable strong sense of oppression swept over, making him feel uncomfortable and suffocated. Zhuowen felt goosebumps all over his body. Fortunately, the candle dragon's eyes just stared at him and did not take any action to attack. Zhuowen put the mysterious stone back into the macro world, while Zhuowen stayed and silently observed the candle dragon's eyes. He could feel the closeness of the candle dragon's eyes to him. He knew that it was because he had the Pangu sacred body. Zhuowen placed his right hand on the candle dragon's eyes and silently felt the emotions of the candle dragon's eyes. He felt a sense of sadness and sorrow, as well as a strong sense of unwillingness. The candle dragon has already fallen, Zhuowen muttered to himself. He saw intermittent memory fragments in the candle dragon's eyes. The memory fragments mainly recorded the scene where the 12 ancestral sorcerers and the 3 pure ones joined forces to fight against chaos. As the memory fragments were too fragmented, Zhuowen only saw intermittent battle scenes. The true face of chaos did not appear in any of the scenes. He only saw the 12 ancestral sorcerers and the 3 pure ones fighting with difficulty. The final scene was that the candle dragon used his life as the price to rewrite the surrounding time and space rules, giving the others a chance to attack chaos. The candle dragon had died, but its eyes had managed to survive while lingering at death's door. The candle dragon's eyes controlled the rotation of the sun and the moon, as well as the alternation of day and night. He was the ancestral sorcerer of time and space. It was precisely because the candle dragon's eyes were too powerful that they managed to survive on their own after the candle dragon died. However, Zhuowen could also tell that this pair of torch dragon eyes had reached the end of its life. It wouldn't be long before this pair of torch dragon eyes would completely close and no longer emit such a dazzling light. Are you willing to follow me? Zhuowen gently stroked the candle dragon's eyes and asked in a soft voice. The candle dragon's eyes blinked gently and the light in the karst cave flickered. Zhuowen knew that the candle dragon's eyes were willing to follow him. I'll refine you and make you a part of my physical body. You'll be with me. Zhuowen's voice was soft. The candle dragon's eyes blinked again to express its willingness. It could feel that the young man in front of it had the Pangu sacred body. This aura made it feel very close, even closer than the candle dragon's body. Chapter 3189. Primordial Technique. Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes. The torch dragon's eyes at the top of the stone pillar had already disappeared and the surrounding cave was plunged into darkness. With a thought, Zhuowen summoned a pair of giant eyeballs behind him. They were none other than the torch dragon's eyes. The moment the torch dragon's eyes appeared, Zhuowen felt as if the surrounding darkness was nothing to him. Moreover, his vision continued to extend beyond the mining area to the quiet Sun Immortal City and the countless tribes within it. The torch dragon's eyes continued to extend and Zhuowen saw the Dark Rock Immortal City as well as the Hongxian Immortal City in the distance. At the same time, he also saw the boundless wasteland within the Massacre Heavenly Domain and the countless weathered rocks and sand dunes on the wasteland. Finally, Zhuowen's vision stopped at the end of the boundless wasteland and a giant mountain shrouded in darkness. The surface of the giant mountain was densely covered with countless black trees. It was pitch black and it was impossible to see what was inside the giant mountain. It was Zhuowen's first time seeing this giant dark mountain, but he knew where it was. This was the forbidden zone of the Massacre Heavenly Domain and the only way out of the Massacre Heavenly Domain. Zhuowen's gaze turned solemn. With the help of the torch dragon's eyes, Zhuowen could only see a part of the giant dark mountain and it was very blurry. He knew that this mountain was not simple. Of course, if he was in the giant mountain, he should be able to see more with the help of the torch dragon's eyes. After putting away the torch dragon's eyes, Zhuowen's face turned pale and his lips curled into a bitter smile. Using the torch dragon's eyes consumed too much energy. In just a short while, he had used up 1/10 of his Heaven Dao energy. However, the power of the torch dragon's eyes surprised him. The torch dragon's eyes had an extremely wide field of vision that exceeded the limit of his divine sense. Additionally, when the torch dragon eyes appeared, it was silent. Unlike divine senses, which could be detected by cultivators, this was the biggest advantage of the torch dragon eyes. In the future, if Zhuowen wanted to observe a battle between experts without being discovered, the torch dragon eyes would definitely be the best divine ability. It would be stealthy. Besides, after Zhuowen merged the torch dragon eyes with his Pangu sacred body, they were actually a part of it. As the level of the Pangu sacred body increased, the power of the torch dragon eyes would also increase. Kacha! All of a sudden, dense cracks appeared on the stone pillar beneath Zhuowen's feet. Finally, it collapsed with a loud bang, scattering into countless pieces of crushed stone. Zhuowen landed on the ground and noticed that there was a glimmer of light in the ruins of the stone pillars. Zhuowen came to the place where the light was and bent down to pick it up. Only then did he notice that the thing shining with light was actually a piece of cloth. The material of this piece of cloth was very special. It was like metal, and its luster was like a mirror, faintly emitting a dim light. From the tear marks on the edge of the cloth, one could tell that the cloth was not complete. However, the moment he flipped open the front of the cloth, a sense of familiarity overwhelmed him. There was a map drawn on the front of the cloth. Yun took out a fragmented map from the outside world. The fragmented map was made of the same material as the cloth in front of him. Yun had obtained this fragmented map by accident. At that time, he knew that the route drawn on the fragmented map was definitely related to the Candle Dragon. However, the fragmented map was too incomplete. Zhuowen could not be sure of the terrain drawn on the fragmented map at all. When Zhuowen pieced the fragmented map together with the fragmented parts of the cloth, it immediately became a complete map. This map is the route to find the Candle Dragon's corpse. Was this map drawn by the Torch Dragon eyes? Zhuowen held the complete map and his eyes shone brightly. He realized that the route drawn on the map was the forbidden zone of the Massacre Sky Domain. In other words, the Candle Dragon's corpse was in the forbidden zone of the Massacre Sky Domain. At the thought of this, Zhuowen's eyes were filled with excitement. His Pangu sacred body had already reached the peak of 6 stars. He was only one step away from upgrading his Pangu sacred body to 7 stars. Moreover, once his Pangu sacred body was upgraded to 7 stars, there would be a qualitative change. Moreover, the 7 stars Pangu sacred body would also use the Pangu sacred power, the last ultimacy of the Pangu flag. His abilities would also increase tremendously. It could be said that the Candle Dragon's venomous insect was extremely useful to him. This time, he had to get the venomous insect. After leaving the underground cave, Zhuowen returned to the jade or vein. He took out the mysterious stone and signaled it to absorb the jade ore in the vein as much as it wanted. After the aura of the Torch Dragon eyes disappeared, the mysterious stone focused its attention on the jade ore in the vein again. With a swoosh, it turned into a stream of light and disappeared on the spot. Everywhere it passed, the jade ore turned into dust. About an hour later, all the jade ore in the vein was absorbed by the mysterious stone. This time, the surface of the mysterious stone was completely covered by veins. An ancient and vicissitude aura slowly flowed out from the mysterious stone. When Zhuowen felt the aura, he felt his heartbeat quicken and his breathing quicken. His face turned pale. The aura was filled with an unquestionable and terrifying pressure. It crushed Zhuowen's body, causing Zhuowen to not dare to move at all. Suddenly, the mysterious stone floated in front of Zhuowen's forehead. Zhuan could clearly see the countless bright veins on the surface of the mysterious stone. At this moment, they began to arrange themselves vertically and horizontally. In the end, the veins gathered at the center of the stone and formed an ancient word. Zhuan had never seen this ancient word before. However, the moment he saw this word, the word appeared in his mind. This thought suddenly appeared in his mind as if some mysterious force had forcefully stuffed this word into his mind. This time, the mysterious energy from the mysterious stone no longer surged into Zhuowen's body and caused him to fall into an epiphany. Instead, ancient information emerged in Zhuowen's mind. The information was profound and mysterious. The words that formed the information were the same as the word Tai. Zhuowen had never seen them before. Although he had never seen it before, the moment the information entered his mind, he naturally knew the specific content of the information. When Zhuowen received all the information, his eyes were filled with shock. At this moment, the mysterious stone fell into Zhuowen's palm. The veins on its surface had already dimmed. Only the ancient word flickered with a faint light and was full of mystery. The information transmitted to him by the mysterious stone mainly talked about a cultivation technique. The cultivation technique was called the primordial technique. If it was an ordinary cultivation technique, Zhuowen would not be so shocked. Chapter 3190. Heaven-crushing 9 transformations. Zhuowen's expression was solemn. The starting point of the primordial technique was the heaven-crushing realm. It was clear that this cultivation technique was an existence that transcended this galaxy. It was a supreme cultivation technique. Moreover, after carefully digesting the information transmitted from the mysterious stone, Zhuowen discovered a fact. With his current cultivation level, he couldn't cultivate the primordial technique at all. Apart from that, the information in the mysterious stone mentioned that it was called the primordial stone. There were a total of 4 primordial stones, and a part of the primordial technique was hidden in each of them. In other words, the grand word stone that Zhuowen obtained was only a quarter of the primordial stone, and it only contained a quarter of the primordial technique. Although Zhuowen was a little regretful that he couldn't cultivate the primordial technique now, he also obtained information about the heaven-crushing realm from the grand word stone. There were a total of 9 transformations in the heaven-crushing realm, and they were referred to as the heaven-crushing 9 transformations. The heaven-crushing 9 transformations, and every advancement in the heaven-crushing 9 transformations was an earth-shattering transformation. This kind of transformation was from the inside to the outside, and also from the outside to the inside. The physical body and soul transformed at the same time. The part of the primordial technique in the grand word stone could only be cultivated to the heaven-crushing 6 transformations. In other words, if Zhuowen really reached the heaven-crushing 6 transformations in the future, he would reach a bottleneck unless he found a few other primordial stones. Zhuowen put away the grand word stone. He knew that the heaven-crushing realm was still a little far away for him. In the entire galaxy, he had never seen a true heaven-crushing realm cultivator. However, there was one thing that Zhuowen was certain of. When this galaxy was first formed, Pangu, who created the world, was infinitely close to the heaven-crushing realm. Unfortunately, Pangu didn't manage to break through the heaven-crushing realm in the end, and he died in the chaos. After Pangu's death, the 12 grand shamans and the 3 pure ones evolved, and countless living beings in the galaxy were born and prospered, developed to their current state. Although Zhuowen was a little disappointed that he was unable to cultivate the primordial grandmist technique, it was still a good thing for him. At least he had a clear direction for his future cultivation. Moreover, even though he was unable to cultivate the primordial grand mist chant in the grand word stone, he could still comprehend it. It would be extremely beneficial to his cultivation. After all, the primordial grand mist chant was a super cultivation technique that transcended the starry skies. The cultivation direction mentioned in it was definitely correct. While Zhuowen was comprehending it, he would definitely gain a lot of inspiration and constantly correct the problems in his cultivation. Let's refine the Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pill first. Zhuowen wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, he casually set up a defensive array in the mining area and took out the Emperor Pill Furnace to refine pills. The Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pill was a mid-stage Heavenly Ascension class divine pill, which was most suitable for early-stage Heavenly Ascension cultivators. Because of this divine pill, an early-stage Heavenly Master cultivator would have a very high chance of breaking through to the mid-stage Heavenly Master realm. The main reason he refined the Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pill was to fulfill his promise to Qi Gaoming and Mei Ying. It took Zhuan half a month to refine the Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pill. To his satisfaction, he succeeded in refining the Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pill on his first try. Moreover, after the pill was successfully refined, the quality of the divine pill had reached top grade. Zhuan carefully placed the 12 Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills into a jade bottle and stored them in the outside world. It's time to explore the Massacre Heavenly Domain's Forbidden Zone. Zhuan stood up and walked out of the mining area. He didn't go straight to the Forbidden Zone, but went to the Quiet Sun Spirit City first. When he left the Quiet Sun Spirit City, Qi Gaoming had said that he wanted to go to the Forbidden Zone with Yun. Naturally, he didn't want to break into the Forbidden Zone. Instead, he wanted to travel with Zhuan, send Zhuan to the Forbidden Zone, and tell Zhuan about the situation inside the Forbidden Zone in detail. Qi Gaoming had also broken into the Forbidden Zone in the past, but he had always lingered around the Forbidden Zone's periphery, not daring to enter the Forbidden Zone's core. After returning to the Quiet Sun Spirit City, Qi Gaoming and Zhou Xiuwei were ready to go. Zhou Xiuwei was brought along by Zhuan's suggestion. On the way to the Forbidden Zone, he planned to impart all his experiences to Zhou Xiuwei. Now that Zhou Xiuwei was his follower, he could be considered one of his people. The higher Zhou Xiuwei's array skills were, the more advantageous it would be for him. In addition, Zhou Xiuwei's array skills were at the peak of the good fortune realm. With Zhou Xiuwei's perception and the experience he imparted, it was only a matter of time before Zhou Xiuwei broke through to the great fortune realm. Brother Qi, this is the Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pill, take it. Zhuan took out 6 Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills and handed them over to Qi Gaoming. It's actually the Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pill. Qi Gaoming held the 6 Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills with both hands. His hands were trembling, his shoulders were shaking, and his face was full of excitement. He originally thought that Zhuan's promise to him would be fulfilled in the future, but he did not expect that Zhuan would refine such a divine pill so quickly. Qi Gaoming himself was at the early stage of the Great Fortune realm. He knew very well that the Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills were too important to him, and he also found that these 6 Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills were actually of unique quality. With these 6 Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills, he believed that he would definitely be able to break through to the middle stage of the Great Fortune realm in the near future. Many thanks, Lord Zhua. Qi Gaoming knelt on the ground and bowed 3 times to Zhuan devoutly. Zhou Xiuwei, who was standing at the side, was full of envy. He knew better than Qi Gaoming how precious the Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills were. He did not expect Zhuan to give out 6 of them just like that. This was too generous. At the same time, Zhuan's generous behavior made Qi Gaoming and Zhou Xiuwei acknowledge Zhuan even more. They thought to themselves that they did not follow the wrong person. Zhuan nodded and accepted Qi Gaoming's 3 kowtows. 6 Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills were indeed worth Qi Gaoming's 3 kowtows. Let's go! Zhuan took the dragon horse that Qi Gaoming brought over and leaped onto its back. He slapped the dragon horse's belly with his legs, and the dragon horse neighed and galloped forward. Qi Gaoming and Zhou Xiuwei followed closely behind. 7 days later, Zhuan's group of 3 arrived at the Dark Rock Divine City. Mei Ying had already received news of Zhuan's arrival, and he opened the city gates to welcome Zhuan. Zhuan noticed that other than Hao Rui from the Dragon Clan, Mei Su, Jiang Yi, and Great Guardian Ying Jie were not around. Mei Ying noticed the doubt in Zhuan's eyes, and he said with a smile, Celestial Master Zhua. Mei Su, Jiang Yi, and Great Guardian Ying Jie have all returned to Hongxian Divine City. Hongxian Divine City is our headquarters after all, and it's impossible for there to be no one to lead it. Zhuan nodded and said with a smile, City Lord Mei Ying can be considered to be riding on the crest of success now that you have 2 divine cities under your control. Mei Ying said seriously, Celestial Master Zhua, you can't say that. I've said it before, Dark Rock Divine City will always be yours. I'm only temporarily managing it for you. Chapter 3191. Forbidden Mountain Range. Zhuowen smiled and said, City Lord Mei Ying, are you so sure that I can leave the forbidden area alive? Mei Ying said seriously, yes, I feel that you can definitely pass through the forbidden area. I can see the shadow of City Lord Ziwei in you, and I feel that you are even more heaven-defying than City Lord Ziwei. Qi Gaoming also nodded and said, Lord Zhua, I thought that City Lord Ziwei was already heaven-defying, but after seeing you, I know what true heaven-defying is. Zhuowen's eyes flashed. When he first entered the Massacre Heavenly Domain, he had heard of City Lord Ziwei from the Tian-Yi tribe. He had always suspected that City Lord Ziwei was the missing Purple Star Lord. Back then, he had asked Ghost Girl to describe City Lord Ziwei's appearance. Unfortunately, Ghost Girl was only the deputy head of a small tribe. She had only heard of City Lord Ziwei, but had never seen him before. Now that Qi Gaoming mentioned City Lord Ziwei again, Nguyen knew that Mei Ying and Qi Gaoming should have seen City Lord Ziwei. Brother Qi, can you describe City Lord Ziwei's appearance? Nguyen asked. Qi Gaoming was startled. Although he was confused about why Zhuan would make such a request, he still did as he was told. After hearing Qi Gaoming's description, Zhuowen's eyes flashed. He was sure that the City Lord Ziwei described was the Purple Star Lord. Who would have thought that the Purple Star Sovereign, who had left without saying goodbye, would end up in the Massacre Heavenly Domain instead of the Heavenly Domain of Xianmi? However, Nguyen was happy for the Purple Star Lord. Since he could build a divine city in the Massacre Heavenly Domain, it meant that the Purple Star Lord was at least at the early stage of the Heavenly Domain. However, Nguyen was still worried for the Purple Star Lord. After passing through the Forbidden Area, he would go to the prehistoric Heavenly Domain. If he wanted to return to the Xianmi Heavenly Domain, he would have to sneak back through the secret passage in the prehistoric Heavenly Domain. And this secret passage had to be approved by the Black King. Thinking of the Black King, Nguyen felt his teeth itch. That bastard was truly despicable. He actually dared to trick him. He had clearly guessed the Black King's riddle correctly, but the Black King still lured him into the Massacre Celestial region. After Qi Gaoming noticed that Zhuowen's expression had turned ugly, his voice became a little cautious. In his heart, he wondered if City Lord Ziwei was Master Zhuo's enemy. After Zhuowen came back to his senses, he took out the remaining 6 Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills from his great world and handed them to Mei Ying. City Lord Mei Ying, I just refined these Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills not long ago. They will be of great help to you in breaking through to the mid-stage of the Heaven Ascension Master Realm. Mei Ying received the 6 Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills. Her delicate body was trembling with excitement. She bowed to Zhuowen and said, Immortal Master Zhua, thank you so much. These Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills are indeed very important to me. I won't stand on ceremony. In the future, if Immortal Master Zhua has any orders, I, Mei Ying, will definitely go through fire and water to complete them for you. Originally, Mei Ying wanted to decline. However, the Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy Pills were crucial to her advancement. Such an item was too tempting for her. How could she be willing to decline? City Lord Mei Ying, you are too courteous. I have promised you before. Naturally, I won't go back on my words. I won't be entering the Dark Rock Divine City. I plan to go directly to the Forbidden Area. Zhuan flipped over and leaped onto the dragon horse. He waved goodbye to Mei Ying. Mei Ying also leaped onto the dragon horse and caught up to Zhu. She said in a deep voice, Immortal Master Zhua, I will also follow you to the Forbidden Area. I plan to send you off. Zhuan nodded and laughed. Thank you, City Lord Mei Ying. Let's set off now. As he spoke, Zhuowen pulled on the reins and sped away. Qi Gaoming, Yang Xiuwei, and Mei Ying followed closely behind. The forbidden area of the Massacre Heavenly Territory was the giant mountain at the end of the Heavenly Territory. Previously, when Zhuan was in the mining area, He had used the torch dragon's eye technique to see the giant mountain. The giant mountain was a 2-month journey from the dark rock divine city. In these 2 months, Zhuowen and the other 3 rode at full speed. During their rest periods, Zhuowen and Yang Xiuwei would discuss their experiences in formations. At the same time, Zhuowen also imparted to Yang Xiuwei all his experiences in advancing to the heaven-crossing level God Master stage. Occasionally, Zhuowen would also discuss matters of cultivation with Mei Ying and Qi Gaoming. Learning from each other's cultivation experience would be beneficial to his future cultivation. 2 months later, Zhuowen and the rest stopped in their tracks. Zhuowen rode on the dragon horse and looked at the towering black mountain in front of him. His eyes were solemn. Immortal Master Zhuo, this forbidden area is known as the Forbidden Death Mountain. There are 3 sections: the foothills, the mountainside, and the peak. The foothills of the Forbidden Death Mountain are what we call the outer area. It's also the area with the lowest risk factor. Mei Ying came to Zhuowen's side and looked cautiously at the mountain that looked like a crouching beast. Moreover, the inner area of the Forbidden Death Mountain is filled with dense sword qi all year round. The deeper you go, the more terrifying the sword qi is. In the past, there was a peak creator who tried to enter the mountainside area. He was immediately torn into a bloody mist by the terrifying sword qi inside. Qi Gaoming also came to Zhuowen's side and looked warily at the giant black mountain in front of him. There's sword qi inside? Do you know where this sword qi came from? Zhuowen asked in astonishment. Qi Gaoming shook his head and said, I'm not sure either. I suspect that there might be a peerless divine sword sealed inside this giant mountain. It's also possible that a peak sword Dao expert died in this mountain. Anyway, these are all my guesses. After all, I've never entered the depths of the Forbidden Death Mountain. With my current strength, I can only enter the mountainside at most. Moreover, I can't completely guarantee my safety. Mei Ying interrupted and said, City Lord Qi is right. The sword qi in the Forbidden Death Mountain is very terrifying. However, if you observe carefully, Immortal Master Zhuo, not every place in the Forbidden Death Mountain has dense sword qi. Some places have thinner sword qi. When the time comes, you can go in and observe carefully before taking action. Besides, there are many precious divine herbs and refining materials in the Forbidden Death Mountain. There are also many rare cultivation resources in the outside world. It's a treasure land that many cultivators would go crazy for. Zhuowen nodded slightly. After knowing that the Candle Dragon had died in the Forbidden Death Mountain, Zhuowen knew that the Forbidden Death Mountain was a rare treasure land. Moreover, he had seen the map and knew that the Candle Dragon's corpse was in the deepest part of the Forbidden Death Mountain, which was the mountainside area. City Lord Mei Ying, Brother Qi, and Master Zhou, let's part ways here. I'll enter the Forbidden Death Mountain now. Zhuowen jumped down from the dragon horse and cupped his fists at Mei Ying, Qi Gaoming, and Zhou Xiuwei. He then walked toward the giant black mountain in front of him without looking back. Mei Ying and the other 2 looked at each other, and there was a worried look in their eyes. City Lord Mei Ying, do you think Master Zhuo can successfully pass through the Forbidden Death Mountain? Zhou Xiuwei asked hesitantly. Actually, I'm not sure. Although Master Zhuo's performance is demonic, it's only in terms of formation Dao and pill Dao. If it's a real battle, he might not be as good as City Lord Ziwei. Qi Gaoming said in a deep voice. Chapter 3192. Entering the Forbidden Death Mountain Range, the Cry of the Mountain Soul? Qi Gaoming muttered to himself. Yes, the Cry of the Mountain Soul. When City Lord Ziwei broke through the Forbidden Death Mountain Range alone, only a few people knew about it. Even we didn't know. But when City Lord Ziwei completely broke through the Forbidden Death Mountain Range, the Forbidden Death Mountain Range let out a loud cry that spread throughout the Massacre Heavenly Domain. It's the Cry of the Mountain Soul. At that time, the news of City Lord Ziwei breaking through the Forbidden Death Mountain Range spread throughout the Massacre Heavenly Domain. Mei Ying's beautiful eyes flickered and her voice was slightly excited. Back then, when the cry of the Mountain Soul resounded throughout the Massacre Heavenly Domain, everyone was shocked. No one thought that after countless years, there would be someone who could really break through the Forbidden Death Mountain range and leave the Massacre Heavenly Domain. Will Lord Zhuo be the second person? But with Lord Zhuo's talent and strength, even if he can't break through, he can still return safely, Qi Gaoming muttered to himself. Mei Ying shook her head and sneered, City Lord Qi, you're wrong. Immortal Master Zhuo is definitely stronger than City Lord Zi way back then. Can definitely break through the Forbidden Death Mountain range. Mei Ying and Zhuowen had worked together several times. Her deepest impression was when they teamed up to deal with the powerful green skeleton in the Death Valley. At that time, she was already helpless. It was Zhuowen who used an unprecedented trump card and finally defeated the green skeleton. At that time, Zhuowen was only an eternal overlord. Now, Zhuowen's cultivation had advanced again and stepped into the third step of Dao validation. She believed that Zhuowen's strength would become even more terrifying. She couldn't imagine that such a powerful and terrifying person couldn't break through the Forbidden Death Mountain range. Qi Gaoming shook his head. He didn't agree with Mei Ying's confidence. He felt that although Zhuowen was powerful, he wasn't as terrifying as City Lord Zi Wei. Mei Ying saw the disagreement in Qi Gaoming's eyes, but she didn't continue. She knew very well that Qi Gaoming didn't understand Zhuowen at all. Arguing with Qi Gaoming now was like playing the lute to a cow. The cry of the mountain soul will resound throughout the Massacre Heavenly Domain in the near future. Mei Ying leaped onto her dragon horse and left. Qi Gaoming looked calmly at Mei Ying's back as he left. His lips curled into a cold smile. Governor, Mei Ying is really presumptuous. He doesn't respect us at all, Zhou Xiuwei said with an unfriendly expression. Hee, Mei Ying used her beauty to bewitch Master Zhuo and made him do so many things for her. However, now that Lord Zhuo has left, we won't be bewitched by this slut. Qi Gaoming sneered. City Lord, what do you mean? Zhou Xiuwei's eyes flashed. The Dark Rock Divine City is Lord Zhuo's divine city, and we are his followers. Naturally, the Dark Rock Divine City should be managed by us. Who is this Mei Ying? He actually controls Dark Rock Divine City. There's also Hongxian Divine City. There's no need for this divine city to continue existing. If possible, Hongxian Divine City should also be destroyed. Qi Gaoming said with a faint smile. But Governor, Mei Ying and Master Zhuo have a good relationship. If you touch her, won't Master Zhuo blame you when he returns? Zhou Xiuwei said worriedly. You don't have to worry about this. We are Master Zhuo's followers, his people. Mei Ying is just an outsider. If we touch Mei Ying, Master Zhuo will definitely stand on our side. Qi Gaoming's eyes flashed with arrogance as he continued. Moreover, after we go back and cultivate in seclusion for a period of time, my cultivation will skyrocket to the middle stage of the Tongtian Master Realm, and your array skills will also reach the Tongtian Master Realm. At that time, in the entire Massacre Heavenly region, who will be a match for us? Even if Master Zhuo comes personally, he will have to be careful. Moreover, he may not be able to return. Divine Master Zhou, if we want to continue to become stronger, then we need more resources. If we want more resources, just the Quiet Sun Divine City alone is not enough. Zhou Xiuwei's eyes narrowed and flickered. Finally, he nodded and said, Governor, you are right. In the Massacre Heavenly region, without resources, we can't continue to improve. As long as we are strong enough, even if Master Zhuo returns, we will still have a bargaining chip to negotiate with him. Qi Gaoming nodded. He was very satisfied with Zhou Xiuwei's understanding of the situation. Let's go back to the Quiet Sun Divine City and cultivate in seclusion. After we both break through, the entire Massacre Heavenly region will change. Qi Gaoming leaped onto the dragon horse and left with Zhou Xiuwei. Yuan naturally did not know the real thoughts of Qi Gaoming and Zhou Xiuwei. He had already entered the entrance of the Forbidden Death Mountain. The entrance of the Forbidden Death Mountain was located in the bushes at the foot of the mountain. The moment Zhuowen pushed the bushes aside and entered the Forbidden Death Mountain, he immediately felt waves of sharp sword qi sweeping towards his body. Countless sword qi swept across. Zhuowen's face changed slightly. He immediately activated his Pangu's sacred body, which emitted a sparkling light. Waves of sword qi blasted on Zhuowen's body. The terrifying tearing feeling made Zhuowen's eyes crack with pain. However, the Pangu's sacred body was indeed powerful. Especially after reaching the peak of 6 stars, the hardness of the Pangu's sacred body had reached an extremely terrifying level. The sword chi blasted on the Pangu's sacred body. Although it made Zhuowen's eyes crack with pain, it did not completely break through the surface of the Pangu's sacred body. It only left blood-red spots on the surface of the Pangu's sacred body. These were the tiny wounds caused by the sword chi tearing the surface of the body. Zhuowen's eyes turned solemn. He had just entered the Forbidden Death Mountain and the sword chi was already so terrifying. If he really went deeper, wouldn't it be terrible? After getting used to the sword chi here, Zhuowen took large strides forward. He had to pass through the foothills and the mountainside to enter the peak. This was because the map he had obtained indicated that the corpse of the candle dragon was inside the peak of the Forbidden Death Mountain. Zhuowen walked in the foothills for half an hour. Suddenly, the rustling of leaves came from the surroundings. The rustling was soft but dense. Zhuowen stopped and looked around. Unfortunately, the Forbidden Death Mountain was shrouded in countless towering black trees. These black trees were very strange. They seemed to be able to absorb all the light and create eternal darkness. It was pitch black all around. Zhuowen could not see the scenery around him at all. He could only see about 1 meter ahead of him. The rustling of leaves became more frequent and closer. However, Zhuowen could not see what was making the rustling sound. Bush, 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 bush. Suddenly, 3 black figures darted from behind Zhuowen and rushed toward Zhuowen's back. Zhuowen kicked with his right foot and immediately dodged the attack from behind. But very quickly, several even more terrifying black shadows flashed out from the left and right, enveloping Zhuowen's body and attacking his vital points. Torch Dragon's Eyes. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. He used the Torch Dragon's eyes and 2 sun-like eyeballs rose behind him. Chapter 3193. When the blazing light appeared, the black shadows that were originally rushing toward Zhuowen cried out in alarm and retreated continuously after sensing the light from the Torch Dragon's eye. Only then did Zhuowen see clearly that the dark shadows that attacked him were dark creatures the size of squirrels. These dark creatures had sharp black spikes all over their bodies. Their eyes were red, and their sharp teeth seemed to be able to tear through any material. At this moment, the dark creatures fled one after another. They looked at Zhuowen with their red eyes in fear. To be more precise, they were looking at the Torch Dragon eye behind Zhuowen. Zhuowen was quick to react. He grabbed the dark creature that had attacked him just now and tore it into pieces with a violent tug. The rest of the dark creatures were terrified of the Torch Dragon eye behind Zhuowen. They fled one after another, trying to escape the range of the Torch Dragon eye. Unfortunately, Zhuowen wouldn't let these dark creatures do as they wished. His figure was like lightning and a ghost as he flashed through the dark forest. Every time he flashed, he would take the life of a dark creature. When Zhuowen finished dealing with the last dark creature, he stopped. The Torch Dragon eye behind him dimmed and hid in the darkness. The Torch Dragon eye could control the energy of light and darkness, and it could switch between the 2 forms. The eye of light burst out with the most blazing light, illuminating the land. It had the brightest vision and could make all creatures temporarily lose their vision, making them unable to see anything clearly. On the other hand, the eye of darkness was silent. It was like a lonely traveler in the darkness. It moved forward quietly and could obtain all the vision in the darkness. Zhuowen used the eye of light at the beginning. The intense light and the terrifying pressure of the Torch Dragon eye immediately frightened the dark creatures so much that they didn't dare to resist. Now, Zhuowen was using the Eye of Darkness. In this forbidden mountain area, there were many dangers. The Eye of Light was too eye-catching and could easily attract the attention of powerful creatures. After switching to the Eye of Darkness, Zhuowen's vision immediately widened. He could see tiny things hundreds of meters away in the darkness. With a thought, Zhuowen immediately widened the vision of the Eye of Darkness from hundreds of meters to more than 1,000 meters. After reaching this vision, Zhuowen was relieved. Within 1,000 meters, he could react in time no matter how fast the creatures were. Moreover, the Eye of Darkness didn't consume as much energy as the Eye of Light. Therefore, Nguyen decided to use the Eye of Darkness to pass through the forbidden mountain area. After observing the surroundings, Zhuan found no danger within 1,000 meters. Zhuan then continued to move forward. As he went deeper, the sword chi became more and more terrifying. Injuries began to appear on Zhuan's body. However, these injuries were nothing of Zhuan. Zhuan walked to the end of the foothill. In front of him, there was a huge stone tablet erected. The stone tablet was connected to the border between the mountainside and the foothills. The surface of the stone tablet was engraved with complex and mysterious patterns. What attracted Zhuan the most was not the stone tablet, but the small herb garden below it. The herb garden was very small. There were only about a dozen divine herbs in it. The reason why it attracted Zhuan's attention was that the lowest level of divine herbs in the herb garden was creation level. In addition, there were 3 heaven-level divine herbs. Unity spiritual herb. Zhuan narrowed his eyes and immediately recognized the 3 stalks of heaven-class divine herbs in the middle of the herb garden. Weren't they the unification spiritual herbs that Mei Ying had taken out previously? Zhuan took a step into the small herb garden. With a wave of his hand, all the divine herbs, including the 3 unity spiritual herbs, were stored in Zhuan's macro world. However, Zhuan did not notice that the moment he stored the divine herbs in the herb garden, the patterns on the surface of the stone tablet lit up. Then, the patterns on the surface of the stone tablet separated and erupted into a terrifying storm of sword chi. It swept toward Zhuan at lightning speed like an angry dragon. Zhuan's face changed slightly. He immediately noticed the storm of sword chi that swept out from the stone tablet. He immediately stepped back with his right foot. The storm of sword chi brushed past Zhuan's chest and slammed into the small herb garden that Zhuan had been in. The terrifying tearing force of the storm exploded, and the small herb garden was blasted into smithereens. QL11 Zhuan's chest was badly mutilated. The storm of sword chi was extremely powerful. Although he was only affected by the aftermath, Zhuan's chest injury was quite serious. After Zhuan landed, a green light appeared on his chest and the badly mutilated wound began to slowly heal. Zhuan's eyes were full of fear. In this darkness, without vision, the storm of sword chi was simply a scourge that could do anything. If Zhuan did not rely on the Eye of Darkness to see 1,000 meters, he was afraid that the storm of sword chi would succeed in its sneak attack. At that time, it would not be as simple as his chest being badly mutilated. Boom! Suddenly, the ground under Zhuan's feet exploded. Zhuan's face was ugly. He used the space-time power and disappeared. Under Zhuan's feet, the storm of sword chi whizzed out and broke the ground like an angry dragon. It seems that this is the checkpoint between the foothills and the mountainside that Qi Gaoming mentioned. If I want to enter the mountainside, I have to destroy this storm of sword chi. Zhuan's eyes were solemn. He took a step forward and pinched the void with both hands. He used the profound sky-splitting blade. Holding the powerful sky-splitting blade with both hands, he slashed out. The terrifying saber chi was like countless storms that exploded and ruthlessly slashed at the storm of sword chi. Bang! The storm of sword chi was destroyed, but soon it absorbed the surrounding sword chi and formed an even more terrifying storm of sword chi. Zhuan's face was ugly. This storm of sword chi was too strange. It could absorb the surrounding sword chi to replenish itself. Didn't that mean that the storm of sword chi could not be destroyed in an environment of sword chi? However, Nguyen did not have time to think about it. The storm of sword chi swept over again. Zhuan had no choice but to meet it head-on. He used the sky-splitting blade with both hands to wildly slash out. Countless saber chi crisscrossed, almost no weaker than the storm of sword chi. Boom! The sky-splitting blade and the storm of sword chi collided and exploded with terrifying energy. Zhuan was directly sent flying and smashed to the ground. The sky-splitting blade with both hands shattered, and the storm of sword chi completely dissipated into nothingness. Zhuan fell to the ground and saw that in the midst of the dissipated storm of sword chi, there was a globe formed by countless lines. Zhuan's eyes lit up. The lines on the globe were not unfamiliar to Zhuan. They were the lines on the surface of the stone tablet. The globe was constantly rotating, and the surrounding sword chi was summoned and gathered on the surface of the globe. Soon, a powerful storm of sword chi was formed. It seems that I have to destroy the globe formed by the lines. Zhuowen's eyes burst with light. He suddenly jumped up and formed a seal with both hands. At the same time, he used the sky-splitting blade, the mysterious light of creation, and the death of heaven and earth. The sky-splitting blade and the death of heaven and earth combined to form a blade of light. It was filled with terrifying destructive power that made people tremble in fear. The mysterious light of creation covered the surface of Zhuowen's body, forming a powerful defensive veil. He was definitely going to go all out this time. He could not afford to waste time with the storm of sword chi. Zhuowen stomped his right foot and rushed out. The sky-splitting blade with both hands blasted out. The destructive power exploded, and the storm of sword chi was directly shattered into countless fine powder, revealing the globe within. Zhuowen groaned and was sent flying with blood at the corner of his mouth. Chapter 3194. The Second Steely Bang. When the sphere was hit by the chi-splitting blade, all kinds of patterns on its body burst open and finally collapsed into countless fine powder. After the sphere collapsed, the sword chi storm that was about to condense also collapsed and scattered into sword chi that wandered around in disorder. At the same time, Zhuowen noticed that the steel that stood at the border between the foothills and the mountainside collapsed and turned into dust. The boundary between the foothills and the mountainside also disappeared with the steel. Zhuowen landed on the steel fragments and was surprised to find that there was almost no sword chi there. This was the best place to rest. Zhuowen sat cross-legged on the steel and began to recover the energy of the way of heaven. At the same time, the injuries on his body were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. When Zhuowen was in the best state, Zhuowen stood up and looked at the mountainside in front of him with a serious look. Although he had not completely entered the mountainside, he could feel that the sword chi there was much stronger than the one at the foothills. Zhuowen did not dare to be careless. He burst out the power of the Pangu's sacred body and stepped into the mountainside. The dense sword chi fell on Zhuowen like a heavy rain, leaving bloody marks on Zhuowen's body. Zhuowen had only taken a few hundred steps when his entire body was covered in blood. Although Zhuowen seemed to be seriously injured, he knew that these were only superficial wounds. The peak's 6-star Pangu's sacred body was not simple. Although the sword chi was terrifying, it was not enough to hurt the foundation of the Pangu's sacred body. With the strong recovery ability of the Pangu's sacred body, these superficial wounds could be completely healed in the blink of an eye. However, Zhuowen did not heal them. This was the slaughter heavenly realm, not the outside world, where the way of heaven was scarce. If Zhuowen wanted to heal these superficial wounds, he would have to consume a lot of energy. Since the foundation was not hurt, Zhuowen did not want to waste energy to heal these superficial wounds. After all, heavenly energy was very precious in this forbidden death mountain where sword chi was everywhere. Zhuowen wasn't willing to waste it. Zhuowen walked for several hundred meters. His eyes flickered, and he leaped onto the trunk of the nearest black towering tree. He crouched down and tried his best to conceal his aura. Boom, boom. Thunderous footsteps were transmitted from a short distance away. Soon after, Zhuowen saw a black bull that was dozens of feet tall walking towards him from the depths of the dense forest with heavy footsteps. The black bull's aura was terrifying, causing Zhuowen to tremble in fear. This was definitely an exotic beast with the strength of a master of the heavens. If Zhuowen were to fight this exotic beast head-on, he might be able to kill it, but the price he would have to pay would be extremely heavy. The reason Zhuowen could discover the terrifying black bull in advance was naturally because of the torch dragon's eye. The torch dragon's eye could silently give Zhuowen a vision of 1,000 meters. Even the creatures in the Forbidden Death Mountain probably couldn't reach such a distance. After the black bull left, Zhuowen heaved a sigh of relief. He observed the surroundings again, and after confirming that there were no other dangers in the surroundings, he continued to move forward. Zhuowen was now very glad that he had refined the torch dragon's eye. If it weren't for it, Zhuowen would definitely not be able to move an inch in the Forbidden Death Mountain. Even his sense of direction would be wrong. Along the way, he had already discovered that there were many terrifying creatures in the Forbidden Death Mountain, and there were quite a few of them. Moreover, Yuan also discovered some extremely terrifying creatures. These creatures were at least at the early stage of the Heaven's Master. Yuan even discovered that a few of them might be at the middle stage of the Heaven's Master. This made Yuan tremble with fear. He wondered what kind of place the Forbidden Death Mountain was, and how could there be so many terrifying creatures. Moreover, according to Yuan's observations during this period of time, he found that these creatures in the Forbidden Death Mountain were like walking corpses. They didn't seem to have independent intelligence, and just wandered aimlessly in the Forbidden Death Mountain. This made Yuan think of the undead, but the strength of these creatures in the Forbidden Death Mountain was many times more terrifying than that of ordinary undead. This was also thanks to the fact that these creatures didn't have any intelligence. If these powerful creatures had intelligence, Yuan wouldn't have been able to avoid them so easily with the Torch Dragon's Eye. Moreover, Yuan also found that the terrifying sword chi around the Forbidden Death Mountain turned a blind eye to these creatures wandering inside and didn't attack them at all. These sword energies only repelled foreign creatures, and they wanted to kill them. Yuan knew that if he got entangled with these creatures here, not only would it attract the attention of other creatures, but it would also be extremely unfavorable to him. Therefore, he was very vigilant along the way, trying not to have a head-on conflict with the creatures in the Forbidden Death Mountain and avoiding them as much as possible. Soon, Yuan saw the junction between the mountain peak and the mountainside not far away. The junction between the mountain peak and the mountainside was similar to the junction between the foothills and the mountainside. There was also a stone tablet, but this stone tablet was taller than the previous one. The lines on the surface of the stone tablet were more complicated than the previous one. They were densely packed and intertwined with each other, as complex as the meridians of the human body. Not far from the stone tablet, Yuan saw another medicine garden. This medicine garden was several times larger than the previous one, and there were many more divine medicines in it, at least nearly 100. What surprised Yuan even more was that there were 3 kinds of divine medicines in this medicine garden, 3 of each kind, for a total of 9. However, to Yuan's disappointment, none of these 3 transcending heaven-grade divine herbs were the materials needed to refine the 6 desires spirit-condensing Saint Pill. The 6 divine medicines of the 6 desires spirit-congealing Saint Pill were the 1,000-year flowerless eyes, red pill sun red, blazing phoenix exquisite leaf, Buddha yellow water bamboo, 3 realms flower chinyu, and scarlet moon star wave milk. Yuan had already obtained the 1,000-year flowerless eyes, red pill sun red, Buddha yellow water bamboo, and scarlet moon star wave milk, these 4 divine medicines. He still lacked the blazing phoenix exquisite leaf and 3 realms flower chinyu. Unfortunately, there were no blazing phoenix exquisite leaf and 3 realms flower chinyu in this medicine garden. Yuan also knew the 3 divine medicines in the medicine garden. They were Su He vanilla, Tian Hun snow lotus, and Tai gold black dragon bamboo. These 3 divine medicines were relatively common. Their value might be lower than the unity spiritual grass. However, they were still divine medicines of the heaven level. In the outside world, they were precious medicinal herbs that were hard to find. Yuan looked at the stone tablet with fear. A faint brilliance enveloped his body. It was the profound creation mysterious light. He had just learned his lesson. He would not make the same mistake twice. He knew that if he picked the divine medicines in the medicine garden, he would definitely trigger the stone tablet. At that time, some kind of powerful force would attack him, just like the sword chi storm. The person who set up the stone tablet and the medicine garden also knew that the intruders would definitely enter the medicine garden to pick the divine medicines even if they knew that it was a trap. Yuan was very clear about this. However, he still planned to enter the medicine garden. He knew that with his ability, he could safely leave after picking the divine medicines in the medicine garden. Yuan's right foot pushed off the ground. Like an arrow that had left a bow, he shot out explosively and charged into the medicine garden in an instant. Yuan waved his hand. Nearly 100 divine medicines in the medicine garden were all stored in Yuan's macro world. Crack. Chapter 3195. Sword Chi Giant Whoosh. An intense sonic boom rang out. Zhuowen had just finished collecting all the divine medicines when he sensed the terrifying sound of wind sweeping over from behind him. It blew at the ends of his hair, causing it to flutter. A strong sense of danger made Zhuowen involuntarily twist his waist in the air. His feet kicked out repeatedly in the air, and he twisted his body like an agile fish. A gust of wind swept past his waist and directly blasted into the herb garden. Zhuowen looked over and found that on the bare ground of the herb garden, there was a long halberd formed by sharp sword qi. Zhuowen was puzzled. When the stone tablet shattered, it formed a powerful storm of sword qi, which was extremely powerful. But now, the second stone tablet formed a long halberd, and Zhuowen could feel that this long halberd was much weaker than the storm of sword qi. This did not make sense. But soon, Zhuowen felt that something was wrong. An even more powerful sound of something breaking through the air blasted towards him from behind. Zhuowen forcefully twisted his body in the nick of time. He immediately saw the sound of something breaking through the air. It was a tall and sturdy giant, who was at least 3 meters tall, punching towards him. And this giant was formed by sword qi. Its entire body was covered in sword qi, and it looked like an illusory figure. But the powerful aura of the giant made Zhuowen tremble in fear. The giant was too fast. Zhuowen only had time to protect his chest with his hands. Then, the giant's fist had already heavily smashed onto Zhuowen's hands. Boom! Zhuowen was directly sent flying and heavily smashed into the ground, creating a huge crater. The sword qi giant did not stop at all. It suddenly landed on the herb garden, and the terrifying force caused the ground to tremble violently. Then, the sword qi giant pulled out the sword qi halberd from the ground and chased after Zhuowen in big steps. The halberd in its hand danced, and a series of halberd shadows swept out, turning into a sharp spiral qi, rushing toward Zhuowen's vital points. Zhuowen pinched the air with both hands. At the same time, he utilized his profound sky-opening blade and heaven and earth perish. 2 massive blades of light, filled with a destructive aura, appeared in his hands. Bang bang bang! Zhuowen stomped on the ground with his right foot and instantly exchanged more than 10 moves with the sword qi giant. Every move was fierce and terrifying. The aftermath of the battle spread out in all directions. The more Zhuowen fought, the more shocked he became. The strength of this sword qi giant was much more terrifying than the sword qi storm from before. Zhuowen exploded with all his strength, but he was still suppressed by this sword qi giant. Furthermore, the sword qi giant was able to manipulate the surrounding sword qi. Every time Zhuowen fought with the sword qi giant, he would have to endure the destruction and cutting of the surrounding sword qi. At this moment, Zhuowen's body was almost a bloody mess. In some places, his bones were even beginning to show. The surrounding sword qi was so terrifying that even Zhuowen's Pangu's sacred body had been reduced to such a miserable state. While fighting, Zhuowen frantically absorbed the origin crystals of the heavenly way in the macro world. His injuries began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. However, the surrounding sword qi was too violent. Not long after Zhuowen's injuries recovered, he was immediately torn into a bloody mess by the sword qi. All of a sudden, the sword qi giant's fist blasted toward Zhuowen's face. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. He slashed with the sky-opening blade in his hand and cut off the sword qi giant's right fist. Zhuowen did not look proud at all. Instead, he looked deeply regretful. This was because when he cut off the sword qi giant's right fist, he also exposed a flaw in his chest. The sword qi giant saw this flaw. He raised the halberd in his right hand and stabbed it into Zhuowen's abdomen, nailing Zhuowen to the ground. At the same time, the sword qi giant kicked forward with his right foot and punched at Zhuowen's chest with his remaining left fist. The power of this punch was too terrifying. It was earth-shattering. The surrounding sword qi also surged and raged, pouring down on Zhuowen like a wave. Destiny Space-Time Kill. Zhuowen made a prompt decision and used Destiny Space-Time Annihilation. A long purple river shot out from space-time and circled around Zhuowen, forming a constantly flowing purple river as a defense. Bang! The sword qi giant punched the purple river and a powerful force exploded. Countless purple water droplets splashed out from the purple river like gorgeous purple fireworks. The sword chi giant's punching speed also slowed down a lot. His punch was obviously affected by the destiny space-time kill. Zhuan took advantage of this gap to pull out the sword chi halberd and immediately retreated. Boom! The moment he retreated, the sword chi giant unleashed a terrifying torrent of sword chi, which actually drowned the entire area where the Purple River was. The Purple River collapsed and the sword chi giant chased after Zhuan with large strides. Its red eyes were filled with killing intent. Zhuan had no choice but to take out the Ho-E Godly Bow and Ho-E Godly Arrow from the outside world. Before the sword chi giant could reach him, he shot out the Ho-E Godly Arrow. Immediately, the Ho-E Godly Arrow turned into a red streak of light and shot out with soaring killing intent. Boom! Ho-Ye's divine arrow landed directly on the giant's chest. A terrifying intent of killing exploded, and the giant's chest was blasted apart, dispersing into nothingness. Although half of the sword chi giant's chest had exploded, Zhuan was not happy at all. He knew very well that the sword chi giant had a pattern core. If he didn't destroy the pattern core, the sword chi giant would be an unkillable cockroach. The Ho-E Godly Arrow exploded the sword chi giant's chest, but Zhuan didn't see the pattern core on its chest. Clearly, the pattern core wasn't in the sword chi giant's chest. The surrounding sword chi swept out and entered the sword chi giant's chest. The sword chi giant's exploded chest immediately recovered. The sword chi giant stood up again and stared at Zhuan with its red eyes. It continued to chase after Zhuan. After knowing how terrifying the sword chi giant was, Zhuan didn't dare to fight the sword chi giant head-on. That was simply courting death. He controlled the power of space-time and his speed was much faster than the sword chi giant. He could use his speed to wear down the sword chi giant. After figuring this out, Zhuan stomped his right foot and the Purple River appeared under his feet. His figure immediately drifted and disappeared from the spot like a ghost. When Zhuan reappeared, he was already beside the Ho-E Godly Arrow that the sword chi giant had casually thrown on the ground. Zhuan picked up the Ho-E Godly Arrow and knocked it on the bowstring again. This time, he aimed at the sword chi giant's abdomen. The godly arrow flew out and pierced the sword chi giant's abdomen. Unfortunately, Zhuan still didn't find the pattern core. Next, Zhuan continued to use the power of space-time to avoid the sword chi giant's pursuit and constantly shot out godly arrows. Arms, knees, crotch, neck. Every time Zhuan shot out the Ho-E Godly Arrow, he aimed at different parts of the sword chi giant and shot through the corresponding parts. Unfortunately, he didn't find the pattern core he was looking for. The sword chi giant was furious. Countless sword chi fused into its body and its body expanded from 10 feet to 15 feet. When the sword chi giant flew out again, its speed was much faster than before and almost caught up with Zhuan. Zhuan looked worried. He knocked the bowstring again and looked at the sword chi giant that was getting closer and closer. He didn't dodge and aimed at the sword chi giant's forehead this time. He had a feeling that the pattern core must be deep in the sword chi giant's forehead. The godly arrow flew out and rushed into the sword chi giant's forehead. Chapter 3196. Strange bird. The moment the core of the pattern was exposed to the air, Zhuan quickly took out the second Ho-E sacred arrow from his macro world, knocked it on the bowstring, and pulled it into a full moon shape. The Ho-E sacred arrow pierced through the air and hit the core of the pattern when it was completely enveloped by the sword chi. With a cracking sound, the core of the pattern shattered into pieces. Then, the Ho-E sacred arrow shot backward, passing through many towering black trees and finally nailing itself to the trunk of the last black tree. After the core of the pattern shattered, the sword chi that had been recondensed collapsed. Zhuan put away the two Ho-E sacred arrows and immediately arrived at the broken stone tablet. There was almost no sword chi in this place. Zhuan spat out a mouthful of blood and his face was pale. He sat down cross-legged and took out several creation-level healing pills from his macro world. After taking them, he looked much better. At the same time, Zhuan took out a large pile of Heavenly Way origin crystals from his macro world and frantically absorbed the Heavenly Way energy in them. With the help of the Heavenly Way energy, he began to heal the terrible injuries on his body. Zhuan's physical injuries were extremely serious. He looked like a man of blood, covered in blood. Moreover, there were many huge wounds on his body. In these wounds, the white bones inside were exposed. He looked extremely miserable. At this moment, with the help of the Heavenly Way energy, these terrible wounds were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. After the wounds were completely healed, the coagulated blood scabs on the surface of Zhuowen's body fell off, revealing a perfect body that looked like it was carved out of jade. After the wounds on his body healed, Yun was surprised to find that the Pangu's sacred body had become tougher than before, as if it had been reborn. It seems that being tortured by the sword qi is not always a bad thing. Zhuan muttered to himself in a self-deprecating manner. After he was in his best condition, Zhuan stood up again. His eyes were like lightning as he looked at the mountain peak in front of him where the stone tablet was broken. His gaze became somewhat serious. He looked at the peak of the mountain. Mei Ying had told him that the exit to the massacre heavenly domain was at the peak of the Forbidden Death Mountain. However, according to the map that he had obtained, the place that led him to the Candle Dragon's corpse was not the peak of the Forbidden Death Mountain. Instead, it was located at the northeast corner of the mountain. There was a symbol of an altar there. Zhuan knew that the altar should be the space where the Candle Dragon's corpse had fallen. Just like the place where Gonggong had fallen, it existed in an independent small world. Zhuan took out the map and looked at it a few times. After confirming that the location of the Candle Dragon's corpse was correct, he put the map away and stepped into the mountain. What terrifying sword qi! The moment he entered the mountain range, Yun could feel the violent sword qi around him. His body was immediately torn apart by the sword qi, causing him to bleed incessantly. The sword qi in the mountain range was too terrifying. Zhuan could only endure the sword qi while circulating his heavenly Tao energy to speed up the recovery of his body. The tearing of the sword qi and the recovery of his body reached a delicate balance. However, this was very draining for Zhuan. After walking for a while, Yun had to stop and rest. He also had to absorb the heavenly Tao origin crystals in the great world to replenish his energy. Zhuan could not imagine how he could make it to the peak of the Forbidden Death Mountain if he could not open his great world. At the same time, Yun thought of Crepe Myrtle's star. Crepe Myrtle's star had managed to make it through the Forbidden Death Mountain on his own. How powerful was Crepe Myrtle's star now? After almost recovering, Yun continued on his journey. The torch dragon's eye on his back was always open to observe his surroundings. The black trees at the peak of the mountain were much denser than at the foot of the mountain and the mountainside. The visibility here was also much worse than at the foot of the mountain and the mountainside. Zhuowen suddenly stopped in his tracks. Then he rolled over and hid in a small depression not far from his left. The moment Zhuowen hid in the depression, a loud rustling of leaves sounded out of nowhere. A huge two-winged bird that was thousands of feet long swept across the dense forest. Then, the two-winged bird stopped above the dense forest and circled above the depression. It let out an unpleasant cry that was like that of an owl. It was terrifying. Zhuowen hid in the depression with an ugly expression. Could it be that he had been discovered by the bird? It actually stopped in the air and did not leave. Zhuowen saw the full appearance of the two-winged bird through the torch dragon's eye. His expression turned even uglier. The two-winged bird was covered in dense scales. Its claws seemed to be forged from steel and suffused with a metallic luster. In the darkness, they flickered with a cold light. In particular, the terrifying aura of the bird made Zhuowen's expression change slightly. This bird's aura was not weaker than that of a middle-stage heaven-reaching master. Moreover, it was in the Forbidden Dead Mountain, an environment full of sword qi. This two-winged bird had a natural advantage. Even a middle-stage heaven-reaching master would have a high chance of dying in a battle with this bird. Zhuowen was very clear that if he was discovered by this two-winged bird, it would be a tough battle. There was even a high chance that he would be seriously injured. He might not even be able to kill this two-winged bird. Suddenly, the circling two-winged bird let out a long cry and swooped down at an extremely fast speed. The direction it swooped down just happened to be in the area where Zhuowen was. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. His heart thumped. Could it be that the bird had discovered him? Zhuowen did not move. He stuck to the side of the depression and stared at the bird that was swooping down. The bird was getting closer and closer. 1,000 meters, 100 meters, until it was 10 meters away. Zhuowen's heart was in his mouth, but he still did not move. Boom! Suddenly, when the bird was 10 meters away from the depression, there was a violent vibration and a buzzing sound around the depression. Then, Zhuowen discovered that 100 Zhanglong python had soared into the sky and was fighting with the two-winged bird. Zhuowen's expression was ugly, and his back was covered in cold sweat. This python had been lying in ambush around him all this time, but he had not noticed it at all. In other words, if the two-winged bird had not appeared, the python would very likely have attacked him secretly. At that time, he would have suffered a calamity. Peng ping peng. The strength of the python and the bird was very close. Both had the battle strength of a middle-stage heaven-reaching master. As the two clashed, terrifying shockwaves surged out like endless waves. The surrounding black trees swayed as the terrifying shockwaves spread out, as if they would fall and break at any time. Countless leaves fell to the ground and were blown by the wind, fluttering in the air like fairies in the dark. Zhuowen kicked with his right foot and rushed out of the depression like a bolt of lightning. He knew he could not stay here for long. Both the python and the bird had probably discovered him. No matter who won, he would be the next to be dealt with. However, Zhuowen suddenly stopped when he was about 100 meters away. He had a strange look in his eyes. In the Forbidden Death Mountain range, Zhuowen had met many powerful creatures and observed many of them. However, when these creatures met, they basically turned a blind eye and brushed past him. They would not attack the python with such a strong purpose like the strange bird. In other words, the strange bird must have attacked the python for a purpose. It was very likely that the place where the python was guarding had something that the strange bird needed. Given that the strange bird was such a powerful creature, the thing it needed was definitely not ordinary. Chapter 3197. SS Alterboom. Boom, boom, boom. The battle between the giant python and the strange bird became more and more terrifying. Large swathes of black trees fell, and black leaves swept out, forming a black storm. An earth-shattering roar exploded in the air, resounding through the clouds and breaking through the horizon. It was as if the entire Forbidden Mountain area was shaken by this roar. It was extremely terrifying. After Zhuowen returned, he did not deliberately approach. Instead, he stopped behind a large black tree hundreds of meters away and silently observed the battle between the giant python and the strange bird. He released the torch dragon's eye's vision to the maximum range and carefully observed the small depression where he was hiding just now. Soon he found a clue. Dozens of meters behind the small depression, Zhuowen found an inconspicuous small slope. The slope of this small slope was very gentle. If not for the torch dragon's eye's vision, Zhuowen would not have noticed this small slope at all. It was really too inconspicuous. Zhuowen approached the small slope carefully. The giant python and the strange bird were almost in a frenzy and did not notice Zhuowen's approach at all. Of course, they probably would not pay much attention to Zhuowen even if they noticed him. In their opinion, this human was too inconspicuous. It would be strange if they paid much attention to him. Zhuowen approached the small slope and heaved a sigh of relief when he realized that the giant python and the strange bird were not paying attention to him. He stretched out his right hand and pushed aside the small slope. Immediately, a powerful medicinal power rushed straight toward him. The medicinal power was so strong that Zhuowen could not help but be pushed back a few steps before he could barely stabilize his body. Oh no! The moment the medicinal power soared into the sky, Zhuowen's expression changed drastically. Without thinking, he waved his right hand and put the divine herb in the small slope into the great world. Then he darted out of the purple river and disappeared on the spot. The giant python and the strange bird that were fighting stiffened at the same time when they sensed the medicinal power that soared into the sky. Soon, the giant python and the strange bird flew into a rage and stopped fighting at the same time. They chased after Zhuowen at the same time with eyes full of rage. Then, the giant python and the strange bird chased after Zhuowen at the same time. A purple river appeared in the void and Zhuowen's figure appeared under the cover of the purple river. His expression changed slightly as he looked at the giant python and the strange bird that were rushing over behind him. These two monsters are actually so fast. Yuan was really shocked. He did not expect that the speed of the giant python and the strange bird could catch up to his space-time power. This was unexpected. Zhuo Wen's eyes were solemn as he pushed the power of time and space to the limit. He turned into a purple ghostly figure in the void, flickering constantly. However, what made Zhuo Wen helpless was that the sword chi here was too dense. The sword chi greatly hindered his speed, causing him to be unable to speed up at all. Boom! Suddenly, the strange bird with two wings flapped its wings as it approached Jun. Suddenly, dense steel plume shot out from the strange bird's wings and swept toward Zhuo Wen's back like the sharpest hidden weapon. The steel plume exuded a terrifying aura and pressure, and its surface shone with a metallic luster. Zhuo Wen had no doubt that if the steel plume pierced his body, even the Pangu's sacred body would be seriously injured. Zhuo Wen stomped his right foot and forcibly moved in the air, barely avoiding the dense steel plume behind him. But soon, his face turned ugly because the moment he avoided the steel plume, his speed immediately decreased. The giant python that had been chasing on the ground seized the opportunity and leaped into the air. It opened its bloody mouth and wanted to swallow Zhuo Wen whole. Zhuo Wen's gaze was cold. The long purple river suddenly expanded and surrounded his body. The giant python's bloody mouth fell on the periphery of the purple river and was immediately affected by the purple river's space-time rules. Its speed was greatly reduced. Zhuo Wen took advantage of this gap and pinched the void with both hands. At the same time, he used the sky-splitting blade and the heaven and earth dying together. Zhuo Wen put the two blades together and formed a huge light blade. Then, Zhuo Wen stabbed the giant python's big mouth with both hands. The light blade pierced the giant python's big mouth and passed through its upper jaw. The destructive energy exploded inside the giant python's body. Clouds of blood mist involuntarily spread out from the giant python's body. The giant python screamed in pain. Its huge body twisted violently in the air. Its thick tail was like a whip, swinging toward Zhuo Wen. The air exploded and the wind whistled. Zhuo Wen's eyes were solemn. He stomped his right foot and the purple river wrapped around him and disappeared, dodging the giant python's huge tail. However, Zhuo Wen didn't relax at all. He found that the sky-splitting blade only caused minor injuries to the giant python's big mouth. It didn't hurt the giant python at all. Moreover, the moment Zhuo Wen retreated, the strange bird had already caught up. Its pair of iron claws seemed to be able to tear through all matter. It grabbed at Zhuo Wen's head as if it wanted to crush it. Zhuo Wen punched out. Blood splattered. He groaned and fell to the ground from the air. The strange bird's body swayed and swooped down again. Its red eyes were filled with monstrous killing intent. Zhuo Wen's eyes were gloomy. He took out the Yama demon portrait and opened the first layer of the Yama demon portrait. More than 20 ghost chains covered in black fog rushed out. Zhuo Wen's soul had undergone several transformations and was much stronger than before. Therefore, the number of ghost chains he could control was naturally more than before. More than 20 ghost chains. Half of them rushed toward the strange bird, while the other half coiled around the giant python. Soon, both the strange bird and the giant python were entangled by the ghost chains. A shocking pain came from the depths of their souls. The strange bird that was swooping down cried out in pain. Its diving body almost fell. If it hadn't reacted fast enough and barely stabilized its body, it would have fallen to the ground. The giant python was also entangled by the ghost face. It swung its huge snake body on the ground in pain. It kept twisting and turning, looking strange and terrifying. Zhuo Wen's face was ghastly pale. He endured the splitting headache and brought the Yama demon portrait to the northeast corner of the mountain peak. He had to get to the altar where the candle dragon's corpse was as soon as possible. He couldn't hold the strange bird and the giant python for too long. After all, although his soul was powerful, he couldn't keep using the Yama demon portrait. Zhuo Wen held his forehead and staggered forward. He was much slower than before. Fortunately, the altar on the map wasn't far from where he was. About half an hour later, Zhuo Wen saw the empty space in the center that was surrounded by black trees. There was an altar standing tall in the empty space. The color of the altar was similar to the void. If Zhuo Wen didn't look carefully, he might not be able to see what the altar looked like. At that moment, the strange bird and the giant python had broken free from the ghost face. Zhuan spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale and he felt dizzy. If he used the Yama demon portrait to trap a middle-stage exotic beast, he might be able to hold on for a long time. However, he had to hold back 2 exotic beasts of such a level now. Zhuan was almost at his limit. Zhuan staggered to the front of the altar. He held the top of the altar with both hands and performed the candle dragon's eye. A pair of huge eyes appeared behind him in the void, emitting a blazing light that was as bright as the sun. Chapter 3198. The World Inside the Altar. The altar had completely materialized and the complicated patterns on its surface were almost complete. Zhuan understood the patterns on the surface of the altar. They were some kind of teleportation patterns. At this moment, the runes shone brightly. A strand of teleportation energy revolved around Zhuowen, constantly tugging at Zhuowen in an attempt to pull him into the other world of the teleportation formation. Zhuowen knew that the other side of the teleportation patterns should be the space where the candle dragon's corpse was stored. At that moment, a deafening roar was heard and the ground shook violently. In the black forest behind Zhuowen, the leaves swayed crazily and fell one after another, sweeping up a strong storm. Then, the giant python shot out of the forest like a bolt of lightning. It opened its mouth wide and spat out a pungent smell, trying to devour Zhuan. At the same time, above the dark forest, a giant strange bird spread its wings. It was even faster than the giant python as it swooped down toward Zhuan. The 2 exotic beasts had terrifying auras and were filled with murderous intent. They attacked Zhuowen at the same time as if Zhuowen had killed their father. Zhuan looked at the altar in front of him and realized that the patterns engraved on the surface of the altar were still glowing. It was obvious that it was still in the process of being activated. It would still take some time for the teleportation patterns to be fully activated. However, it was obvious that there was no time now. The giant python and the strange bird were too fast. They would not give Zhuowen so much time to prepare. Zhuowen knew that he had to delay the 2 terrifying exotic beasts for some time. Thinking of this, Zhuowen sighed softly and took out the Yama ghost picture again. The first layer of the Yama ghost picture was opened and more than 20 ghost chains wrapped in black fog shot out. The moment the strange bird and the giant python saw the ghost chains, they paused for a moment. They had personally experienced the pain of the ghost chains earlier. The pain came from the depths of their souls. It was simply too painful. The strange bird and the giant python subconsciously wanted to dodge. Unfortunately, the ghost chain's speed was faster than the speed of light, and their auras were locked onto. The strange bird and the giant python were once again bound by the ghost chain. The giant python writhed on the ground, its scarlet eyes filled with pain. The strange bird, on the other hand, fell straight down from the sky. It spread its huge wings and struggled non-stop. It kept flapping its wings as it cried out in pain. Zhuowen sat cross-legged beside the altar, and the Yama demon portrait floated above his head. Zhuowen's condition was even worse than the giant python and the strange bird. Cold sweat kept breaking out on his forehead and back, completely drenching his clothes. His body trembled violently, and his face was unbelievably pale. As time passed, Zhuowen's eyes were bloodshot. He stared at the altar beside him and growled in his mind, "Why haven't the teleportation patterns on the altar been activated yet? If you don't hurry up, I won't be able to hold on any longer." As time passed, although the strange bird and the giant python were still in great pain, they had gotten used to the pain of the ghost chain. They actually struggled to crawl toward Zhuowen. Although they were crawling very slowly, the distance between them was constantly closing. Zhuowen's countenance changed drastically. It was already a little difficult for him to control the Yama demon portrait, let alone deal with these 2 mutated beasts. If the strange bird and the giant python were to get close to him, Zhuowen would definitely be in trouble. This made Zhuowen very anxious. He knew very well that if the strange bird and the giant python were to get close to him, he could only summon his original body from the Great Realm. However, although his original body's cultivation had just advanced, its strength was not particularly terrifying. If he were to come out, he would probably not be able to withstand the sword cheese in the surroundings, let alone these two mutated beasts who were at the middle stage of the heavenly master realm. Zhuan was anxious as he kept looking at the teleportation patterns on the altar beside him. It's finally done. After waiting for a while, Zhuan felt that the pulling force on his body was getting stronger. He knew that the teleportation patterns had been activated. Boom. At the same time, the giant python was the first to arrive in front of Zhuan. Its huge tail swept over and viciously hit Zhuowen's chest. Because Zhuowen's attention was on the altar, he did not notice the giant python's approach and was directly hit by its tail. Zhuowen groaned and spat out a mouthful of blood. The Yama demon portrait closed again because of his heavy injuries, and the ghost chain around the giant python and the strange bird were withdrawn into the Yama demon portrait. Without the restraint of the ghost chain, the giant python and the strange bird let out a loud roar and rushed toward Zhuan. They were infuriated. To think that they would be reduced to such a wretched state by a mere human. Once they caught hold of this human, they would definitely tear him into pieces and ensure that he was deader than dead. Seeing the giant python and the strange bird rushing toward him, Zhuowen's expression changed greatly. If he was hit by the attacks of these two exotic beasts, he would definitely die. However, he felt that the pulling force from the altar was getting stronger and stronger. In the end, it enveloped Zhuowen's entire body, as if a large hand was squeezing Zhuan. At the critical moment, just as the attacks of the giant python and the strange bird were about to reach him, Zhuan turned into a ray of light and entered the altar. Bang! The attacks of the giant python and the strange bird missed and collided with each other. Immediately after, the two exotic beasts roared and retreated. The giant python and the strange bird cried out unwillingly. Their gazes fell on the altar that was still emitting light. They could clearly see that the beam of light that the human had turned into had entered the sacrificial altar. The giant python roared. Its huge tail swept over and smashed heavily on the altar. However, the altar did not move at all. It did not sway at all because of the giant python's tail. Instead, an ancient and terrifying power erupted from the giant python's tail and spread to its entire body. The giant python's scarlet eyes revealed a human-like fear. Then, the giant python fell to the ground and swayed violently. Boom! A muffled explosion sounded from the giant python's body. The giant python's body continued to expand like a balloon. When it had expanded to its limit, the giant python exploded into countless pieces of bloody foam. The strange bird was so frightened that it hurriedly flew into the sky. It looked down at the altar standing in the middle of the open space with fear in its eyes. The strange bird hovered in the air above the open space for a while before letting out an unwilling cry. Finally, it stopped on a towering black tree at the edge of the open space. Its scarlet eyes were fixed on the altar. It was extremely powerful and had already gained sentience. It knew that the human must have entered some sort of spatial world. Since the human had entered a spatial world, it was impossible for him to stay in there forever. He would definitely come out. The strange bird planned to wait for the human to come out. The godly medicine that the human had snatched away was far too important to the strange bird. It had searched for countless years before finally finding the godly medicine. How could it give up just like that? It was determined to snatch the godly medicine back from the human. Zhuan felt his vision blur and he realized that he had appeared in a different place. Under Zhuowen's feet was a boundless wasteland. In the sky above the wasteland, there were 3 rotating stars. This star was abnormally huge. In addition, the sky above it was dotted with specks of stars. These specks of stars were very far away and were much smaller compared to the 3 stars. Other than that, Zhuan did not find anything else in the wasteland. Isn't this where the candle dragon's corpse is? Why don't I see the candle dragon's corpse? Chapter 3199. As the 3 stars, Zhuowen's gaze landed on the 3 alternating stars at the top of the wasteland, and his expression became serious. There was nothing in this wasteland world at all. Only these 3 alternating stars were the most eye-catching. Zhuowen suspected that there was a high chance that the candle dragon's corpse was hidden in the 3 planets that revolved around one another. However, before going to these 3 stars, Yun took out a lingji from the great world. This lingji was covered in green frost, and its surging medicinal power spread into the sky, forming a violent medicinal power storm. This was the heavenly blue frost lingji, which was what the python and the strange bird were fighting over. The heavenly blue frost lingji was a mid-stage heaven ascension divine medicine. Its effect was similar to the supreme peace spirit pill that Zhuon refined. It could allow early-stage heaven ascension lords to break through to the mid-stage heaven ascension lords. However, the only difference between the two was that the supreme peace spirit pill could only be consumed by early-stage heaven ascension lords. Beings of other cultivation levels could not consume it. Beings below the early-stage heaven ascension lords would not be able to withstand the terrifying medicinal power of the supreme peace spirit pill and would explode to death. Meanwhile, beings above the mid-stage heaven ascension lords would not be able to use this divine pill at all. However, the heavenly blue frost lingji was different. This divine medicine could be consumed directly, and there was no need to refine a divine pill at all. Moreover, its effects were even stronger than refining a divine pill. Furthermore, the restriction on who the heavenly blue frost lingji could consume was not as great as the supreme peace spirit pill. Beings who had reached the third step of Tao validation could consume it, not just early-stage heaven ascension lords. Of course, as the heavenly blue frost lingji was very powerful, cultivators below the heaven ascension lords could consume it in moderation. They could control the amount of heavenly blue frost lingji. Zhuowen's human main body was only an early-stage heaven ascension lord. He estimated that after consuming 1/4 of the heavenly blue frost lingji, his main body would be able to break through to the mid-stage. Zhuon looked at the 3 alternating stars in the sky. He waved his sleeve and summoned his human main body. This wasteland world was different from the forbidden mountain range outside. There was no terrifying sword chi here. In the air, Yun could even sense a faint aura of heavenly Tao energy. This place was the most suitable place for his human true body to consume the heavenly blue frost Ganoderma. After Zhuon set up a heaven-piercing defense formation around his true body, he handed the blue frost heavenly spirit Ganoderma to his true body. After that, he commanded his doppelganger to fly towards the 3 alternating stars in the sky. The purple river revolved around Zhuon. Zhuowen's speed was terrifyingly fast. He flickered in the air like a ghost, transforming into many purple shadows. Half a day later, Zhuowen's expression was somewhat ugly because he discovered that although the 3 stars seemed to be not far from the ground, they were still very far away. He flashed for half a day, but he didn't feel any closer. Helpless, Yun took out the space-time roulette and performed the destiny space-time kill at the same time. He let the purple river revolve around the bottom of the space-time roulette, causing the speed of the space-time roulette to reach a terrifying level. Another day passed. Zhuon heaved a sigh of relief in his heart because he discovered that the distance between him and the 3 stars was obviously shortening. This meant that although the 3 stars were very far from the ground, they weren't so far away that he couldn't reach them. After confirming the distance between the 3 stars, Zhuon calmed down and sat cross-legged on the space-time roulette. He flipped open the true records of pill arrays and began to study the pill Tao and array Tao. Although his pill Tao and array Tao had reached the heaven-piercing level, they were only at the early stage of the heaven-piercing level. However, in the heaven-piercing level, the array Tao Divine Master and pill Tao Divine Master were subdivided into 4 levels, which were the early stage, mid-stage, late stage, and pinnacle. Heaven-piercing divine pills and array Tao naturally had their corresponding levels, which were the early stage, mid-stage, high stage, and pinnacle. The Supreme Harmony Spiritual Energy pill that Zhuon refined was a mid-stage heaven-piercing divine pill. Zhuowen's pill Tao and array Tao could only be considered to be at the entry level of the heaven-piercing level. If he wanted to reach the pinnacle of the heaven-piercing level, he would have to continue to explore and study. Moreover, he discovered from the true records of pill arrays that the pill array Immortal Monarch had vaguely mentioned that the pill array Tao and array Tao were above the heaven-piercing level. Just like the path of cultivation, there were also heaven-breaking levels. However, the true records of pill arrays didn't mention which levels there were. It was only vaguely mentioned and didn't go into depth. After that, Zhuon completely immersed himself in the study of the pill array Tao and pill Tao. He almost forgot about himself. Jun handed the space-time roulette to Xiao He to control. Time passed by slowly. Yun was awakened by Xiao He. He opened his eyes and looked around. He discovered that he was surrounded by 3 huge stars. Xiao He, how long did it take us to get here? Juan put away the true records of pillar rays and asked. Xiao He said with a serious look, more than a month. Kid, didn't you notice that there's something strange about these 3 stars? Juan looked puzzled. He had just woken up and hadn't carefully observed these 3 stars. Look, these 3 stars are clearly full of vitality. However, I didn't find any living beings in these 3 stars. These 3 stars are dead stars. They're clearly dead stars. Why do they have such a strong vitality aura? Xiao He's expression was very serious. It looked at the 3 stars around it and sounded a little worried. Juan also noticed this. He used the torch dragon's eye to carefully observe the 3 stars around him. He was surprised to find that the 3 stars had a yellow earth, a blue sea, and a lush forest that was full of vitality. However, he couldn't see any living beings in these 3 stars. Apart from the vigorous vitality in the stars, these 3 stars were really no different from dead stars. Jun landed in one of the stars. When he looked at the other 2 stars from this star, Jun realized that the other 2 stars were as far away as 2 inconspicuous stars. This discovery made Zhuowen frown. He flew out of this star and entered another star. When he looked at the other 2 stars in the second star sphere, what he saw was still 2 almost negligible stars. Zhuowen tried the 3rd star and the result was the same as the first 2 stars. What's going on? Zhuowen was puzzled. The 3 stars were so close to each other. Why was it that when he entered any one of the stars, he could only see 2 inconspicuous stars when he looked at the other 2 stars? From Zhuowen's point of view, the 2 stars were much smaller than the 3 stars he had seen in the wasteland. This was too illogical. Is it an illusory formation? Zhuowen's eyes flickered as he thought of something. This phenomenon could only be explained by an illusory formation. However, if there were illusory formations in these 3 stars, Jun should have noticed it the moment he entered the star. After all, he was a heaven mastery formation master. Since he didn't notice anything, there was only one possibility. This illusory formations level was not low. Moreover, the illusory formations foundation was not in any of the 3 stars. Zhuowen raised his head again and looked at the 2 inconspicuous stars in the sky. He seemed to be enlightened. I got it. Zhuowen stomped his right foot and flew out of the star to the center of the 3 stars. This center was the core of the 3 stars that rotated alternately. The moment Zhuowen arrived at the center, he immediately sensed the aura of the formation. The formation's foundation is really here. Chapter 3200. Candle Dragon, what a powerful array base. Zhuowen waved his right hand, and the Beast Bone spell formation disc floated around him. He backed up a dozen or so steps, looking at the spell formation base. At the center of the 3 stars, a jade platform that was half the height of a man appeared. The surface of the jade platform exuded a rich glazed light. A powerful aura of array Dao circled around the jade platform. Zhuowen's gaze turned serious. This jade platform contained not just one type of formation base, but several types. They were all fused together, which made it difficult for Zhuowen to decipher them. Fortunately, Zhuowen had observed that the several large formations arranged on the formation base were only at the creation level. If they were at the heaven ascension level, it would really give Zhuowen a headache. It was too complicated. Zhuowen sat cross-legged in front of the jade platform, his hands quickly forming a series of hand seals. 81 beast bone formation discs flew out, flickering with blazing waves of array Dao. About 4 hours later, cracks began to appear on the surface of the jade platform. The cracks became more and more concentrated until they eventually spread across the entire jade platform. The jade platform cracked and shattered into countless fine powder. Boom, boom. Immediately after, Nguyen sensed a powerful fluctuation coming from the 3 stars around him. He saw that the 3 stars had stopped rotating, and one after another, huge explosions occurred within the stars. A terrifying explosion resounded throughout the 3 stars. In the end, the 3 stars directly exploded and shattered into countless fine powder. The powerful shockwave of the explosion spread out, forming a terrifying pressure around Zhuowen, as if it was going to crush Zhuowen. At the moment when the 3 stars exploded, Zhuowen performed the mysterious light of creation and activated all the power of his Pangu's sacred body to resist the pressure of the terrifying explosive energy that filled the air. Bang bang bang. The pressure of the explosion was too terrifying. Zhuowen's arms exploded, followed by his legs, then his chest and abdomen. Zhuowen couldn't care less about saving the energy of the Great Path. He crazily drove the recovery ability of the Pangu's sacred body. The moment his body exploded, his body quickly recovered. Zhuowen's body was constantly exploding and recovering. This cycle seemed to never stop. This can't go on. Zhuowen's expression changed. The energy from the explosion of the 3 stars was too terrifying. He couldn't maintain this state for too long. If the speed of his recovery could not catch up to the speed of the explosion, then he would be completely dead. Zhuowen roared and used his torch dragon eyes. A pair of huge eyes appeared behind him. While recovering his physical body, he observed the environment where the 3 stars had exploded. He knew that the 3 stars would not explode for no reason. There must be an entrance that led to the space where the candle dragon's corpse was. Over there. Zhuowen's eyes shone. Through torch dragon's eyes, Zhuowen saw a palm-sized, dark spiral hole where the jade pedestal was broken. Zhuowen struggled to get closer to the black spiral hole. However, the energy from the explosion was too terrifying. Countless strong winds swept over with heat waves that seemed to be able to destroy everything. They kept pushing Zhuowen away. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with determination. He endured the pain of his physical body being destroyed and recovered as he struggled to get closer to the black spiral hole. Finally, Zhuowen's right hand touched the black spiral hole. Immediately, he felt a strong suction force acting on his body. Then, he was directly pulled into the black spiral hole. After Zhuowen entered, the black spiral hole slowly closed. The terrifying energy from the explosion of the 3 stars also stopped at this moment. In the wilderness, Lin Fan was refining the blue frost Ganoderma. The moment his clone entered the black spiral hole, he opened his eyes and looked at the sky. Then, he suddenly stood up with a look of shock in his eyes. He saw that in the sky above the wilderness, the 3 stars were still rotating and shining brightly. It was as if the explosion just now did not exist at all. What's going on? Could it be that everything just now was an illusion? The main body frowned. The explosion just now was so real, but now it gave him a kind of illusory feeling. Moreover, what made Lin Fan even more worried was that after his clone entered the black spiral hole, the divine consciousness connection between him and his clone was completely severed. This made Lin Fan a little worried about his clone's situation. Lin Fan did not plan to go up and take a look. There was a big difference in strength between Lin Fan and his clone, so Zhuowen did not plan to let Lin Fan take the risk. Moreover, Lin Fan's cultivation level increased very quickly while he was absorbing the blue frost Ganoderma. Zhuowen had a feeling that when Lin Fan completely refined a quarter of the blue frost Ganoderma, he should be able to advance to the mid-stage of the Lord of Creation. I'd better improve my strength first. Lin Fan muttered to himself. He was very clear about the strength of his clone. Moreover, the great world was also placed on his clone. If something really happened to his clone, Lin Fan would also be cannon fodder. Zhuowen only felt that the void in front of him was rapidly flashing past his eyes. It was so fast that he was dazzled. But soon, the void disappeared, and his body also completely stabilized. He looked down and discovered that he was standing on an extremely huge black stone. This black stone sat on the edge of a cliff. And where he was, the surrounding space and time were chaotic. In the sky above the void, there were actually meteor-like torrents of space-time that frequently streaked past his eyes. This was a region where space-time was distorted. If he was not careful, he would be swept into an unknown region by space-time. Zhuowen raised his head and looked extremely far away in the sky above the cliff. There, he saw a huge snake body that was 100,000 feet long. However, at the end of the snake body, there was not a snake head, but a human head. The human head had the appearance of an old man with a head full of white hair. His eyes were tightly shut, and there was a line of blood tears under his eyelids that had already solidified on his cheeks. Zhuan looked at the huge corpse of the snake body that was floating in the distorted spacetime. He knew that the corpse was his ultimate goal in entering this place, the Grand Wizard Candle Dragon. It had to be said that the Candle Dragon had hidden his corpse very well. He had even opened up an independent space where space-time was in chaos in his great world. In such a space where space-time was in chaos, the space-time rules were completely messy. Unless an expert was more powerful than the Candle Dragon, he could ignore the distorted space-time in the space and get close to the Candle Dragon's corpse. If one was not powerful enough, one could only be proficient in space-time rules and see through the essence of space-time. Otherwise, one would not be able to move at all in this space. Zhuan was indeed proficient in space-time rules, but the space-time here was too complicated, so he could only see the general idea. However, he had refined the Candle Dragon's eye. The Candle Dragon's eye was the Candle Dragon's eyes to begin with. It could see through all space-time and explore the essence of things. With the help of the Candle Dragon's eye, Zhuan could totally do whatever he wanted in this space. At the thought of this, Zhuan formed a seal with both hands, and a pair of illusory eyes rose gradually from the void behind him. At this moment, the space-time in the chaotic space became clear in Zhuan's eyes. He could see the direction of the space-time in the space clearly. The distorted space-time looked like curved lines. As long as Zhuan avoided those lines, he would definitely be safe. Zhuan observed for half an hour. After choosing the safest route, the Candle Dragon's eye behind him dispersed. Chapter 3201. Getting the venomous worm swoosh swoosh swoosh. Zhuan was flying in the air at a moderate speed. Although he had found the safest route with the help of the Torch Dragon Eye, he dared not be careless. The space-time here was chaotic and too complicated. If he was too fast, there would be no room for him to dodge. As he got closer to the Candle Dragon's corpse, Zhuan could not contain his excitement. He knew very well that as long as he got the Candle Dragon's venomous worm and integrated it into his Pangu sacred body, his Pangu sacred body would definitely break through to 7-star again. Although there was only a difference of 1 star, Zhuan knew very well that the 7-star Pangu sacred body would undergo a transformation. His strength would undergo earth-shaking changes. When he was 100 meters away from the Candle Dragon's corpse, the sound of wind could be heard coming from the distorted space-time beside him. A wind blade was heading toward Zhuan silently. Zhuan's eyelids twitched. He was too close, and it was too late for him to dodge. Zhuan stomped his right foot in the air and clenched his right fist. Sparkling lights burst out as he punched the wind blade. The wind blade was not powerful. Zhuan shattered it with his punch. However, the wind blade's force pushed Zhuan a few meters back. Then, Zhuan felt an extremely strong suction force behind him. Along with the suction force was a terrifying tearing force. Zhuan's back was immediately torn into a bloody mess. Damn it! There's a distorted space-time so close behind me. Zhuan's face was ghastly. He tried his best to escape. At the same time, he performed the Destiny space-time kill. The purple river wrapped around him and tried its best to pull him out. In the end, it managed to pull him out. After escaping from the distorted space-time, Zhuan's forehead was covered in cold sweat. His back was badly mutilated, and one could even see his exposed spine. Zhuan used his energy to heal the injuries on his back while he performed the Torch Dragon Eye. He then realized that he had deviated from the safe route that he had planned at the beginning. There were distorted space-time places on both sides of where he was now, and they were only a few meters away from him. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Zhuan planned to keep the Torch Dragon Eye on during the last part of the journey. The rest of the journey was very smooth. With a cheat like Torch Dragon's Eye, Zhuan was like a fish in water. When Zhuan finally arrived in front of the Candle Dragon's corpse, he let out a sigh of relief. He looked at the Candle Dragon's face. The Candle Dragon's. His eyes closed. The Candle Dragon's face, and he sighed after confirming that there was no aura. He bowed to the fire. Candle Lin Wang Lin. Wang, and is. Now that I have obtained Pangu's legacy, I will definitely have to face primal chaos in the future. Is. After Zhuowen finished speaking, he leaped onto the candle dragon's back. He then sat down with his legs crossed, and his body was glowing. For black shadows were wriggling around his heart. They broke out of his skin, and they were 4 thumb-sized worms. The 4 worms were not ordinary worms. They were the ancestor wizard goo worms. They were the Zhu Rong goo worm, the Gomeng goo worm, the earth goo worm, and the Gonggong goo worm. The 4 worms had different forms. The Zhu Rong goo worm was red in color, and it was filled with a fiery aura. On the other hand, the Gomeng goo worm was glowing in green. The green glow was gentle. Zhuowen's Pangu's sacred body's powerful recovery ability was mainly due to the Gomeng goo worm's power. The earth goo worm contained the energy of the earth, and it was glowing in yellow. The Gonggong goo worm was blue in color, and it was emitting a strong water element. As soon as the 4 worms appeared, they entered the ancestor wizard candle dragon's body in unison. Zhuowen knew that if he wanted to find the goo worm in the candle dragon's body, he could only let the other ancestor wizard goo worms do it. However, Zhuowen was worried. The candle dragon was an ancestor wizard who could control time, space, light, and darkness. The goo worm in his body must be good at time and space. The 4 goo worms that he fused with were not good at time and space. If the candle dragon wanted to escape, his 4 goo worms might not be able to catch up. Just as Zhuowen was worried, Zhuowen realized that there was a black shadow above the candle dragon's head. The black shadow was only the size of a thumb. As soon as it appeared, it immediately dashed towards another time and space. At the same time, 4 black shadows of different colors followed closely behind the illusory shadow. Zhuowen stared at the black shadow that was escaping. He knew that it should be the candle dragon's goo worm. Without hesitation, Zhuowen unleashed the candle dragon's eyes and chased after it. However, Zhuowen soon gave up. The candle dragon's goo worm was too fast and very slippery. He could not catch up with it at all and was shaken off in an instant. On the other hand, the 4 goo worms that he fused with were following closely behind the candle dragon's goo worm. He knew very well that there was an inexplicable connection between the ancestor wizard goo worms. Although his 4 goo worms were not as fast as the candle dragon's goo worm, they could know the location of the candle dragon's goo worm in advance based on the connection between the ancestor wizard goo worms. After knowing that his speed was much slower than the candle dragon's goo worm, Zhuowen stopped chasing after it. Instead, he returned to the candle dragon's body and waited quietly. At the same time, he maintained a connection with the 4 goo worms with his divine telekinesis and observed the candle dragon's movements. Bang, bang, bang. Just as Zhuowen was contacting the 4 goo worms, the space-time distortion in the surrounding space was collapsing. The terrifying energy formed by the collapse caused Zhuowen to be terrified. All the time and space around them were collapsing. As Zhuowen was on the candle dragon's body and the candle dragon's body had the ability to repel time and space, Zhuowen was still safe for now. However, such a state would not last for long. However, once the time and space around them collapsed completely, the space would explode and collapse as well. By then, everything in the space would collapse into nothingness. Be it Zhuowen or the candle dragon's body, they would not be able to escape. Hurry up! Zhuowen was anxious as he urged the 4 goo worms to move faster with his divine telekinesis. The space would not last for long and he had to leave as soon as possible. Rumble! The surrounding space began to collapse, and the collapsing space was directly annihilated into nothingness. Nothing existed anymore. Moreover, the space was collapsing faster and faster. As time passed by, the space around them began to collapse and spread towards Zhuowen. It was getting closer and closer. Zhuowen looked terrible. He knew that once the space around him collapsed, both he and the candle dragon's body would be destroyed. Got it! Zhuowen's eyes lit up. In his divine telekinesis, the 4 goo worms had finally caught the candle dragon's goo worm and they were rushing towards him at full speed. Hurry up! Hurry up! Zhuowen was extremely nervous. As he watched the space collapse approaching him, his voice began to tremble. Just as the space collapse was about to reach Zhuowen, the 4 goo worms grabbed the candle dragon's goo worm and rushed into Zhuowen's palm. After Zhuowen swiftly put the candle dragon's goo worm into his great world, he quickly left the candle dragon's body. Crack, crack, crack. Chapter 3202. 7-star Pangu's sacred body. A purple river surrounded Zhuowen's feet, and a pair of torch dragon eyes appeared in the void behind him, flashing in the space like a ghost. This space was collapsing, and the space-time distortion was more intense and complicated than before. If he made a wrong move, he would be doomed eternally. At this point, Zhuowen did not dare to not use the torch dragon eyes. Otherwise, he would be courting death. The moment he opened the torch dragon eyes, Zhuowen's face turned even uglier. The space in front of him was full of danger, and most of it was collapsing and distorting. Now, Zhuowen could only choose a path with a weaker degree of distortion. Now, he had to return to the black stone on the cliff below this space. He knew that this black stone was the connection point to the outside space. Zhuowen stepped into the place where the distortion was weaker, only to feel a strong suction force acting under his feet, almost sucking him into the depths. If Zhuowen had not been prepared, he would have been pulled in by this suction force. He took a step forward, swept across the distorted land, and immediately rushed to the next place. Zhuowen was under great pressure as he moved forward in this space where the distortion and collapse coexisted. However, he had to move forward desperately because the collapse of the space behind him was approaching him. If he was sucked in by the collapsing space, there was no chance of him surviving. The cliff was close at hand, but Zhuowen stopped in his tracks. This was because between him and the cliff, there was a rather large and distorted land in front of him. This distorted space-time was on the verge of collapse, and it would probably collapse soon. When that time came, Zhuowen would not have a chance to leave. A hint of viciousness flashed through Zhuowen's eyes. He unleashed the mysterious light of creation, which covered his entire body. Then, the purple river circled around him. He also mobilized the power of the Pangu's sacred body to the peak, took a step forward, and entered this distorted spacetime. The moment he entered, a strong tearing force swept over, and purple water droplets splashed around the purple river, filling the entire space. The purple river was being suppressed by the twisting and tearing force, and was beginning to shrink. Zhuowen's eyelids twitched slightly as he continued to walk forward. The space-time distortion power's resistance was very strong, and Zhuowen's speed inside was very slow. When Zhuowen was 1/3 of the way through, the purple river completely collapsed. Countless crushing and tearing forces surged in like ferocious beasts and blasted against the creation mysterious light on the surface of Zhuowen's body. The celestial light of creation was quite powerful, and it managed to block the terrifying pressure from the distorted space. However, the creation mysterious light was flickering, and it was clearly barely holding on. Zhuowen knew that the celestial light of creation could not hold on for long. He had to leave this distorted space as quickly as possible. Zhuowen increased his speed. When he was about to reach the edge of the space-time distortion, the mysterious light of creation collapsed as it could not withstand the terrifying power in the surroundings. Suddenly, the terrifying twisting force swept over like a tide, crushing Zhuowen's body as if it wanted to crush Zhuowen into powder. Zhuowen immediately spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face turned pale. However, he forcibly operated the Pangu's sacred body to resist the powerful suction of the distorted space. He stepped out of the edge and stood on the black stone on the cliff. Boom! Boom! The moment Zhuowen stood on the black stone, the distorted space that Zhuowen had just passed through began to collapse. The collapsing force was so strong that it quickly spread to the cliff where Zhuowen was. The cliff shattered and began to collapse. At the same time, Zhuowen was enveloped by the teleportation power of the black stone, and he disappeared from this space. The instant Zhuowen opened his eyes, he discovered that he had appeared in the center of 3 stars. However, his face changed drastically. Without thinking, he took out the space-time roulette and left the range of the 3 stars. Not long after Zhuowen left the range of the 3 stars, the 3 stars completely exploded. The terrifying explosion spread out and immediately lifted the space-time roulette. Zhuan spat out a mouthful of blood and quickly stabilized the space-time roulette to prevent it from going out of control. Yun landed on the wasteland. Not far from where his original body was, the 3 stars in the sky were still exploding. Moreover, the explosion's aftermath was getting more and more terrifying, and it seemed like it was going to blow the world into nothingness. Zhuan looked serious. He now knew that when he entered the space where the Candle Dragon's corpse was, the explosion of the 3 stars was simply an illusion. Moreover, it was an illusion created by the teleportation force in his mind. Now, the 3 stars had really exploded. It was not an illusion like before. Zhuan no longer cared about the 3 stars that were still exploding. Instead, his gaze landed on his original body. He saw that a quarter of the heavenly blue frost Ganoderma in his original body's hand had been absorbed. His original body's cultivation level had also advanced from the early stage to the mid-stage of the Genesis Lord. This heavenly blue frost Ganoderma should be able to allow my original body's cultivation level to reach the peak of the Genesis Lord stage in a short period of time. Zhuan's eyes flashed. He waved his sleeve and put his original body into the Great World. The cultivation environment in the Great World was much better than the space here. The reason why he had summoned his original body was mainly because he was worried that something would happen to his clone when he entered the 3 stars. He did not want to implicate his original body. Now that his clone had returned safely, his original body naturally did not need to cultivate in such a harsh environment. After doing all this, Yun took out the Candle Dragon's goo worm from the Great World. The Candle Dragon's goo worm was transparent. If it was placed in the void, it would be the same color as the void. It was impossible to tell where the Candle Dragon's goo worm was. At this moment, the Candle Dragon's goo worm was imprisoned by Zhuowen's divine power. Although it kept struggling, it was impossible for it to break free. Whether or not I can advance to the 7-star Pangu's sacred body this time depends on you. Zhuowen's eyes were bright. A crystal light appeared in his palm. This was the power of Panga's land. He planned to directly refine the Candle Dragon's goo worm and integrate it into his body. Time passed by minute. The Candle Dragon's goo worm struggled fiercely in the beginning. Later, it struggled less and less. In the end, it stopped moving. It turned into a ray of light and merged into Zhuowen's glabella. Yun sat on the spot. His body was emitting a dense crystal light. He was absorbing the energy of the Candle Dragon's goo worm. His own aura was also getting stronger. Half a month later, Zhuowen abruptly opened his eyes. An ancient and vast aura rushed out from his body and soared into the sky. Moreover, this aura was getting stronger and more terrifying. It was as if it could collapse the entire sky. Zhuowen stood up and roared to the sky. His body emitted a dazzling crystal light. The aura on his body had also reached an extremely terrifying level. The entire wasteland trembled violently. Zhuowen's aura was too terrifying. Countless cracks appeared in the wasteland space. At the same time, black holes appeared in the sky above the wasteland space. Every black hole brought a terrifying and powerful calamity. There was a black wind that raged like a wild dragon. There was a Xian thunder that was so powerful that it could destroy the world. There was also a flame that was as black as ink. Every calamity was far beyond what this space could withstand. Chapter 3203. Calamity. Black wind, black thunder, and flames descended at the same time and blasted Zhuowen's body. The powerful bombardment forced Zhuowen to retreat. In an instant, Zhuowen's chest was blasted open by the 3 terrifying calamities, forming a huge and terrible wound. Zhuowen smashed heavily on the ground, creating a huge and deep pit. Zhuowen frantically mobilized the power of the Pangu's sacred body, and his blasted chest quickly recovered. However, he was shocked to find that the number of black holes in the sky was increasing, and so was the number of calamities. Rumble! The calamities mercilessly fell on Zhuowen's body. The terrifying energy spread out, and the entire wasteland world trembled violently. Countless cracks began to appear in the world, as if it would collapse at any time. Zhuowen looked up to the sky and roared, directly resisting with the Pangu's sacred body. He found that although the calamities were very powerful, Every time he resisted, his body seemed to have been tempered thousands of times, and its toughness had taken a qualitative leap. He knew very well that as long as he resisted all the calamities, he should be able to completely stabilize the 7-star Pangu's sacred body. He might even be able to go further, directly from the early 7-star Pangu's sacred body to the middle 7-star Pangu's sacred body. Zhuan was hit by the calamities again and again, falling from the sky to the ground again and again. The entire wasteland was full of huge pits formed by Zhuan's fall. As Zhuan continued to resist the calamities, his Pangu's sacred body became more and more powerful. It emitted a sparkling light that was as blazing as the sun, illuminating the entire wasteland. Bang, bang, bang. Time passed slowly. Zhuan looked up at the sky and saw countless black holes. These black holes were so dense that they covered the entire sky of the wasteland. Zhuan raised his head to look at the sky. It was as if he could see a pair of dark eyes looking down at him, sizing him up, examining him. Powerful energy fluctuations spread over the entire wasteland. Zhuan saw that the wasteland world was collapsing. He knew that this was the last calamity, and also the most terrifying one. The wasteland world could not withstand such terrifying energy. The calamities fell from the sky, and the entire wasteland world space was shrouded in the energy of the calamities, and the air was exuding a destructive aura. As the calamities descended, the wasteland world was collapsing. Zhuan was standing alone in the wasteland. He was like a lonely traveler. He stood and looking at the terrifying calamities that were about to descend from the sky. When the calamities descended on the wasteland world, Zhuan's body immediately collapsed and turned into a bloody mist sea of blood. However, the moment he turned his is as GMA poison go is? When the power of the calamity was too terrifying and came surging over, Zhuan's newly recovered body immediately disintegrated into a mournful mist of blood and powder. Under the calamity's energy, Zhuan's body was constantly being destroyed and restored. Zhuan's eyes were filled with shock. This last calamity was simply too terrifying. It was practically at the level of the apocalypse. His recovery speed was almost unable to keep up with the speed of his physical body's destruction. Zhuan frantically absorbed the heavenly law origin crystals in the wasteland world, and used up the heavenly law energy he had just absorbed at an even faster speed. He also had to endure the pain of his body being torn apart. Rumble! The wasteland world exploded, and the sky shattered. The entire wasteland world was collapsing at this moment. Zhuan frantically escaped towards the opening created by the wasteland world's collapse. He knew that if this world collapsed, he would be destroyed as well. He was not willing to sit here and wait for death. Finally, at the final moment of the wasteland world's collapse, Zhuan successfully entered the opening and disappeared from this collapsing world. Zhuan only saw a flash in front of his eyes, and he appeared in an empty space. This empty space was surrounded by large black trees, and not far from him, there was a sacrificial altar that was half the height of a person. This was the empty space where Zhuan had entered the wasteland world. Zhuan only had his upper body left. His lower body had completely exploded in the calamity. Zhuan looked at the sacrificial altar not far away and sighed in relief. It seemed that the calamity did not follow him out. Thinking of the final calamity, Zhuan felt a lingering fear. He really could not imagine how long he would have been able to last if he had continued to stay in that calamity. Zhuan began to circulate the energy in his body, slowly restoring his lower body. Suddenly, a clear cry sounded from above. Zhuan looked up and immediately saw the strange bird that had been chasing him. Its scarlet eyes were coldly looking down at him. Damn it, this bastard couldn't have been waiting for me outside, right? Zhuan's face was ugly. Although he was wary of this strange bird, he was not afraid. Now that his Pangu sacred body had advanced to 7 stars, his strength had risen to a higher level. Even without the help of the Yama ghost picture, Zhuan could fight this strange bird. The strange bird suddenly swooped down, and Zhuan's lower body had been completely restored. His entire body emitted a sparkling light that shot up to the sky and the earth as he slowly bent his knees. The moment Zhuan was about to jump into the sky, the sacrificial altar not far away suddenly exploded. Immediately, the calamity energy, which was the fusion of Xian thunder, black wind, flames, and other terrifying energies, enveloped Zhuowen like a tide. Damn it, why is it still not letting me go? The moment he saw the calamity surging toward him, Zhuowen was so scared that he immediately retreated. The moment Zhuowen retreated, the strange bird swooped down and landed right where Zhuowen had been standing. The calamity energy poured down on the strange bird's body. A shrill scream exploded in the entire open space out of thin air and rushed into the sky. The surrounding black trees were so shocked that their leaves fell down. The strange bird's wings flapped crazily, wanting to take off and get rid of the terrifying calamity energy. Unfortunately, all of its efforts were in vain. The calamity energy was like maggots that constantly wrapped around the strange bird, binding it round after round and tightly restraining it. Even though the strange bird's skin was rough and thick under the bombardment of the calamity energy, countless pieces of flesh and blood burst out. It was riddled with wounds, and even the bones under the flesh and blood could be seen. Zhuowen watched this scene silently. He found that the calamity energy no longer followed him when it enveloped the strange bird, as if it had completely forgotten about him. It seems that the strange bird has passed the last calamity for me. Zhuowen's eyes were full of pity as he looked at the wailing strange bird. The strange bird was very powerful. It had the strength of a mid-stage Skirich master, but under this calamity, it was still in a desperate state. In Zhuowen's opinion, even if the strange bird could survive this calamity, it would not be far from death. The calamity energy gradually receded and finally dissipated. The strange bird's massive body crashed to the ground. Zhuowen looked over and his heart trembled. He saw that there was almost no intact part of the strange bird's body. Its skin was torn open and its flesh was badly mangled. Zhuowen looked over and saw that almost all that was left of the strange bird was a skeleton. Only 1/3 of its body still had flesh and blood, and it was minced flesh and blood. It looked extremely miserable. At this moment, the strange bird kept struggling and wailing. Its eyes were already blind, and its head had been blown up to only 1/3 of its body. It couldn't see Zhuowen at all. Zhuowen slowly walked over to the strange bird and sighed softly. If you had not attacked me, perhaps you would not have ended up like this. It's fate. I'll send you on your way so that you can avoid more pain. Chapter 3204. Killing Intent in the Black Forest Plop. The strange bird let out a wail and fell to the ground, losing all signs of life. Bush, bush, bush. The moment the strange bird fell to the ground, Zhuowen heard rustling noises coming from the surrounding black forest. In his eyes, black shadows were flashing and running. Deep, beastly roars rang out one after another, surrounding the open space. Zhuowen slowly stood up and looked at the flashing black shadows in the surrounding forest. He knew that the commotion just now was too big and had attracted the attention of other creatures in the mountain area. Now, many creatures had gathered and were ready to attack, eyeing him covetously. Zhuowen's whole body was shining, and his eyes were like torches. The sword chi around him was not affected at all. Since Zhuowen's Pangu sacred body had reached 7 stars, it had taken a qualitative leap. The sword chi in the mountain area could not even break his skin. Suddenly, a black shadow roared and rushed out of the secret order. It was a fierce tiger that was 30 meters tall. Its whole body was black, and it had scaly skin. Its strong muscles were constantly wriggling as it ran, showing its great strength. The black tiger was not very strong. Judging from its aura, it was probably only half a step away from the Master of Heaven. The black tiger's scarlet eyes were shining with a ferocious and greedy light. It opened its bloody mouth, as if it was going to swallow Zhuowen whole. However, when the black tiger was in front of Zhuowen, Zhuowen suddenly stretched out his right hand and clasped the black tiger's neck. What was shocking was that the black tiger's neck was in Zhuowen's hand. No matter how hard it struggled, it could not get rid of it. The black tiger's eyes were filled with fear. It did not expect this human to be so strong. It wanted to break free, but it found that all its efforts were in vain. Bang! Zhuowen abruptly exerted force with his right hand and pressed Black Tiger to the ground. Shortly after, his left hand formed a fist and suddenly smashed down. the entire Forbidden Death Mountain range shook. The black tiger's head exploded, and a terrifying deep hole appeared on the ground. The headless black tiger's body struggled unconsciously and finally stopped moving completely. It could not be more dead. When Zhuowen killed the black tiger with a single punch, Zhuowen could clearly feel that the movements of the shadows in the surrounding dark forest had stagnated for a moment. Clearly, this move of his had intimidated the creatures hiding in the forest. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. He picked up the black tiger's body and threw it behind him. The black tiger's corpse whistled through the air as it was violently flung out by him. Instantly, the several creatures that had originally rushed out from the black forest behind him, wanting to launch a sneak attack on him, were immediately struck by the black tiger's corpse and could not help but fly backwards into the black forest. The moment Zhuowen threw out the black tiger's corpse, Zhuowen pushed off with his right foot and entered the dense forest ahead. There were many creatures in the mountain area. He could not waste his time with them here. He had to pass through the forest as soon as possible, reach the peak of the mountain, and leave this place. The moment Zhuowen entered the forest, he was immediately attacked by several black shadows. These black shadows were also black tigers. However, these black tigers were weaker than the previous one. They were only at the peak of the creation realm. Zhuowen punched out with his fist, and it was like a rainbow piercing through the sun. It pierced through the bodies of the black tigers that were blocking his way, and he suddenly threw them to the ground. After that, he continued forward. Although Zhuowen's eyes were calm, he was a little anxious. The moment these creatures appeared, Yun had already used the torch dragon's eye. He saw clearly that there were at least 3 figures surrounding him. What made him even more fearful was that there were 7 sky-reaching master-level creatures. The 2 strongest among them were at the mid-stage of the sky-reaching master level. They were powerful creatures on the same level as the strange bird and the giant python. The only thing that made Zhuowen heave a sigh of relief was that these 7 sky-reaching master-level creatures did not make a move and were silently following him. He also found that these sky-reaching master-level creatures were not on the same side. While they were following him, they were also on guard against each other as if they were guarding against a thief. What Zhuowen was most afraid of was that these 7 sky-reaching master-level creatures were in the same group. If these 7 sky-reaching master-level creatures joined forces to encircle Zhuowen, he would really be in danger. Zhuowen continued to leap through the black forest, and on both sides of him, dense rustling noises could be heard. Black shadows followed him like ghosts, ready to attack at any time to deal a fatal blow to Zhuowen. Another black shadow unexpectedly flew over from the side of Zhuowen. It opened its bloody mouth and bit toward Zhuowen's chest. Zhuowen's eyes were calm as he continued to move forward. He threw out a punch and smashed it on the black shadow's head. The black shadow let out a wail. Its head was directly smashed into pieces, splattering countless amounts of blood and gore. Next, as Zhuowen kept running, more and more black shadows rushed out of the dark forest and launched fatal attacks on Zhuowen. However, all of them were smoothly blocked by Zhuowen. Zhuowen's body was covered in blood, making him look like a violent and bloody man. Most of the blood came from the strange beasts. Zhuowen, on the other hand, was basically uninjured. It had to be said that the 7-star Pangu's sacred body was indeed much stronger than the 6-star Pangu's sacred body. If it weren't for the advancement of Zhuowen's Pangu's sacred body, Zhuowen wouldn't have had a chance to escape from the encirclement of these powerful creatures. However, Zhuowen didn't dare to be careless. As he approached the peak of the mountain, he noticed through the torch dragon's eyes that the 7 sky-reaching master-level creatures that had been chasing him without making a move began to move. Zhuowen's hands formed into claws and tore apart 2 strange beasts that were half a step away from the sky-reaching master-level creatures. His eyelids twitched. A huge black yak rushed over, its huge horns emitting a cold light. Zhuowen was no stranger to this black yak. When he was in the mountainside area, he met a black yak at the early stage of the sky-reaching master level. He didn't expect that this black yak would be attracted to the mountainside area and was now chasing after him. "You're courting death." Zhuowen's eyes were cold. He jumped and landed on the black yak's head. He grabbed the black yak's hard horns with both hands. The black bull angrily roared, constantly swinging its huge head, its huge body rampaging through the black forest. One black tree after another was knocked to the ground by the black bull. Zhuowen's eyes revealed a ruthless look. Using the torch dragon's eyes, he saw that the other 6 sky-reaching master-level creatures were ready to make a move. He knew very well that if he didn't get rid of this black yak quickly, the other 6 sky-reaching master-level creatures would think that he was weak and would attack one after another to fight for him. If he wanted to make the other 6 sky-reaching master-level creatures afraid, he had to show enough strength. Die! Zhuowen made a gesture with his right hand and used the profound meaning sky-splitting blade. In an instant, a blazing light condensed in the palm of his right hand. Then, a huge light blade filled with an ancient aura appeared in Zhuowen's hand. Even Zhuowen was startled by the vast aura. However, Zhuowen didn't think too much about it. He held the sky-splitting blade and stabbed it into the black yak's head. Immediately, blood spurted out. Zhuowen condensed another sky-splitting blade and stabbed it into the black yak's head again. The black yak cried out in pain and shook its head even harder. Chapter 3205. The golden mouse Zhuowen found that after advancing to the 7-star Pangu's sacred body, all his qualities had undergone a qualitative transformation. At the same time, Zhuowen also found that the power of the 5 profound meanings given by the Panga banner had also undergone a qualitative transformation. Before advancing to the 7-star Pangu's sacred body, Zhuowen's 7-splitting blade could not hurt a creature at the early stage of the 7-reaching master. But now, the 7-splitting blade could easily cut open the head of a creature at the early stage of the 7-reaching master like the black bull and tear it apart. This was a result that Zhuowen did not expect. Moreover, Zhuowen also found that after merging with the candle dragon goo worm, his understanding of space-time had become more thorough and clearer. All the misconceptions about the power of space-time had been cleared up at this moment. If he were to use the Fate space-time kill again, its power would definitely be terrifying. His speed would also be much faster than before. All of this was brought about by the candle dragon goo worm. At this moment, the black bull's huge body was still struggling violently. It kept swaying to a great extent. Zhuowen put his hands together and the 2 7-splitting blades merged into a huge broadsword. Zhuowen jumped down and stabbed the broadsword in his hand into the black bull's back. Then, with the help of the falling force, the broadsword slid directly from the black bull's back to its chest and abdomen. When Zhuowen landed on the ground, the black bull was cut in half by the broadsword. Blood splattered everywhere. The black bull screamed and fell to the ground completely motionless. The moment the black bull was killed, Zhuowen saw through the candle dragon's eyes that many of the black shadows surrounding him had stopped moving. Their eyes were filled with fear. The other 6 creatures at the 7-reaching master level in the deepest part were even more shocked. They were originally ready to attack, but they were stunned for a moment. "You'd better not provoke me. Otherwise, I'll kill you too." Zhuowen looked in the direction of the 6 creatures at the 7-reaching master level. His voice was terrifyingly low and he did not hide the killing intent in his eyes. After saying that, Zhuowen stomped his right foot and quickly left. In the depths of the black forest, 6 powerful beings at the Master of Heaven level watched Zhuowen's departing figure with flickering eyes. No one knew what they were thinking. At their level of cultivation, they had already developed spiritual intelligence. Their spiritual intelligence was even higher than most humans. Of the 6 sky-reaching lords, 2 of the other 4 were clearly the leaders. One of them was a palm-sized golden rat, while the other was a tiger-headed monster with a human body. Both of them had the strength of a mid-level heavenspan lord. Although the golden rat looked inconspicuous, its aura was extremely terrifying. It wasn't any weaker than the tiger-headed exotic beast. This human isn't simple. He was able to kill Old Cow so easily, which means that he should have strength comparable to a mid-stage Skirich master. It's best that we don't provoke such an existence. The tiger-headed strange beast said coldly. The golden rat sneered and said, "Sure who, when did you become so cowardly? He's just a mere human. As long as we join forces, killing him will be easy." "Gold Devourer, you want to go after that human?" The tiger-headed man asked with a frown. "I just don't like that human and want to kill him." I can't bear to see him act so arrogantly in front of me. The golden rat sneered, then turned into a golden shadow and disappeared on the spot. It chased after Zhuan. The tiger-headed man looked at the golden rat's departing figure with a thoughtful expression. He had dealt with Gold Devourer for many years and knew how shrewd this guy was. He was sure that this guy wouldn't attack just because he didn't like the human. This guy usually had a strong motive for attacking. Since Gold Devourer was determined to attack that human, there must be something on that human that Gold Devourer wanted. Sherhu frowned slightly. He had a strange feeling in his heart, but when he thought of Black Cow's miserable state, his heart turned cold. He was indeed much stronger than the Black Bull. However, he was sure that the human was no weaker than him. If he were to fight the human head-on, both of them would be severely injured at most. He might not even be able to kill the human. I can follow and take a look, Sherhu thought to himself. Then, he looked at the other 4 strange beasts beside him. He could see the fear in their eyes. These 4 strange beasts were about the same strength as Black Cow. When they saw Black Cow being easily dealt with by the human, they knew that they were no match for him. Naturally, they gave up on the idea of chasing after him. Everyone, let's disperse. That human isn't someone to be trifled with. We don't have to fight to the death with him. It's too disadvantageous for us. Sherhu waved his hand. The 4 strange beasts let out a sigh of relief and dispersed into the depths of the black forest, disappearing from sight. After the other black shadows lost their target, they also left on their own. Sherhu's eyes flickered. He quietly flew in the direction where the golden rat went. One was very fast. Moreover, the altar wasn't far from the peak of the mountain. Therefore, he only took an hour to reach the peak. He realized that the peak of the mountain was the only place in the Forbidden Death Mountain range that didn't have the Black Forest. It was covered in a thick layer of snow. With a glance, Zhuan saw the side of a mountain covered in white in front of him. It was emitting the fluctuations of a formation. Zhuan flew to the side of the mountain. With a wave of his sleeve, a powerful wave of energy brushed past. The snow on the side of the mountain turned into water and poured down. On the exposed rock wall of the mountain, Zhuan saw a huge formation. Zhuan could tell that this was a very high-level teleportation formation. Moreover, it could teleport dozens of people at once. There were hundreds of grooves around the formation. Zhuan knew that these grooves were used to place Heavenly Tao origin crystals to provide the energy needed by the teleportation formation. Zhuan was about to take out the Heavenly Tao origin crystals and place them in the grooves of the teleportation formation when a strong sense of danger overwhelmed him. Zhuan didn't even think about it. He turned around and rolled. Then, not far from him, a golden figure flashed and heavily smashed into the ground, directly blasting the mountain into nothingness. Zhuan landed lightly on another mountain peak. His gaze was solemn as he looked at the exploded mountain peak. He saw that the attacker was actually a palm-sized golden rat. The moment he saw this golden rat, Zhuan's eyes burst out with coldness. He was no stranger to this golden rat. It was one of the 7 sky-reaching master-level creatures that were secretly spying on him in the Black Forest. Moreover, this golden rat wasn't an ordinary sky-reaching master-level creature. Its cultivation should have reached the middle stage of the sky-reaching master level. Its strength couldn't be underestimated. Your reaction is quite fast, human. The golden rat floated in the air, its golden eyes staring coldly at you. I already warned you before, but you still dared to follow. It seems that you're not afraid of death. Zhuan calmed down, his voice filled with killing intent. Do you really think you can kill me? That's ridiculous. The one who's going to die today is you, not me. Human, obediently hand over what you got from the altar. Otherwise, your death won't be so easy. The golden rat floated in the air with its arms crossed, looking calmly at Zhuan, full of confidence. Zhuan kicked off with his right foot and rushed toward the golden rat. He arrived in front of it in an instant and punched out with his right fist. The golden rat sneered and turned into a golden shadow, trying to dodge Zhuan's punch. But soon, the golden rat realized that something was wrong. The moment it retreated, black chains stretched out one after another, trapping it in all directions. The moment it came into contact with these black chains, It felt as if its soul was being torn apart. It wanted to break free, but found that these chains firmly bound it. There was no way it could escape. "You're the one who wants to die, so don't blame me." Zhuowen's eyes were cold. His right hand formed a sky-splitting blade and attached it to the sky-splitting blade. A terrifying aura of destruction surrounded the sky-splitting blade, causing its power to reach an unprecedented level. Pucci. Chapter 3206. Seeing the Black King again. Pucci. The sky-piercing blade pierced the golden rat's chest. Zhuowen found that the sky-piercing blade had only penetrated a few inches before it was stuck by the golden rat's flesh. After all, this golden rat was a terrifying existence at the middle stage of the sky-piercing realm. How could it be so easily destroyed by Zhuowen? However, the golden rat wasn't having a good time either. The terrifying destructive energy of the sky-piercing blade was like maggots that invaded its body, constantly destroying its meridians, flesh, and blood. Bang! The golden rat exploded with a blazing golden light, and the sky-piercing blade that had pierced into its body instantly dissipated. Zhuowen retreated repeatedly, and the Yama ghost diagram above his head produced even more ghost chains that tightly bound the golden rat. As for Zhuowen, he endured the pain of the Yama ghost diagram's backlash. He took out the Ho-E godly bow and Ho-E godly arrow from his macro world, pulled them into a full moon shape, and released his fingers. The Ho-E godly arrow shot out, transforming into a streak of bloody light. Boom! The Ho-E godly arrow pierced into the golden rat's body, and a terrifying killing intent exploded within the golden rat's body. However, the golden rat's skin was tough, and the Ho-E godly arrow only pierced the tip of the arrow, but it didn't pierce through. Zhuowen took out the second Ho-E godly arrow, pulled it into a full moon shape, and shot it out again. This Ho-E godly arrow was much more powerful than the first one. Nearly half of the arrow pierced into the golden rat's body, and a bloody mist exploded. The golden rat's aura was rapidly weakening. The golden rat's eyes were filled with fear. It had never imagined that this human in front of it would have such a powerful trump card. If it had known, it definitely wouldn't have chased after him. Wasn't this just looking for a beating? Human, you win. I, Gold Devourer, will remember you. The golden rat shone brightly like a rising golden sun. The two Ho-E godly arrows were forced out of its body, and then turned into a streak of golden light, passing through the ghost chains and disappearing into the black forest behind it. After putting away the Ho-E godly arrows and ghost chains, Zhuowen's face was pale. He staggered, and a look of pity appeared in his eyes. It seemed that a middle-stage sky-piercing realm creature wasn't so easy to deal with. This golden rat was clearly in a dead end, and yet it was still able to use its trump card to escape. This caused Zhuowen to become vigilant. In the future, when he fought against such an expert, he had to be extra careful. Zhuowen's Ho-E godly Yama ghost diagram, the Yama ghost diagram as a Yama ghost diagram, as Yama ghost Shana. In addition, Zhuowen had caught it off guard, so the golden rat was easily trapped by Zhuowen. In the end, it could only be beaten up by Zhuowen. If the golden rat had been prepared, Zhuowen believed that he would not have been able to defeat the golden rat so easily. He would have had to put in a lot of effort. Moreover, the series of attacks just now had exhausted almost 70% of Zhuowen's strength. Zhuowen might not even be able to defeat an early-stage sky-piercing realm creature. However, Zhuowen didn't dare to show that he was weak. He used the torch dragon's eye to discover Shi hiding in the dark not far away. Zhuowen endured the discomfort in his body and went to the side of the mountain. He used the Heavenly Tao Origin Crystal to fill up all the grooves. Then, a powerful teleportation force swept over. Zhuowen was swept in by the teleportation force. He let out a sigh of relief. He knew he was completely safe now. Shi, who had been hiding in a dark corner of the Black Forest, saw Zhuowen disappear into the transportation formation. His eyes were filled with shock when he came out. The battle between Zhuowen and the golden rat just now, he had seen it all with his eyes. He knew that the human was strong, but he didn't expect him to be this strong. Gold Devourer's strength was close to his, but he was almost killed by the human. Could the human be a late-stage sky-piercing realm expert? Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to subdue Gold Devourer so easily. If Gold Devourer hadn't used a secret technique, it would have been a corpse now. He really is a jinx. Fortunately, he left. Otherwise, the entire Forbidden Mountain area wouldn't be peaceful. Sure, who glanced at the formation on the rock wall with fear. Then he retreated into the dark forest. Zhuowen opened his eyes and discovered that he had appeared in an extremely unfamiliar place. It was a blood-red wasteland. There was nothing in sight. This reminded Zhuowen of the small world where the torch dragon's corpse was stored. This place was almost exactly the same as the small world. They were both wastelands. The only difference was that there was a hideous blood moon in the sky. There were 3 stars in the sky of the wasteland. No, this isn't the primitive celestial domain. It's a small world. What's going on? Zhuowen frowned. He was confused. Suddenly, Zhuowen felt the sky darken as an enormous black shadow streaked across the top of his head. Then, the huge black shadow landed on the wasteland. Its huge body was like a huge mountain. When it landed on the ground, it caused a terrifying tremor. It was as if there was an earthquake. It was a huge lion that looked like it was made of black iron. Zhuowen stood in front of the black iron lion. He was like a tiny ant. Zhuowen's face turned green the moment he saw the black iron lion. He cursed, "Fuck you, Black King, how dare you appear in front of me?" The black iron lion that appeared in front of Zhuowen was the Black King who had guided Zhuowen into the secret passage. Of course, the Black King's guidance was completely wrong. He had led Zhuowen into the fucking massacre celestial domain. The Black King held his forehead helplessly and quickly said, "I say, calm down. Don't be so agitated. This is not good for your body, do you understand?" Zhuowen's gaze was cold and said, "Back then, you deliberately lured me into the massacre celestial domain? Now that you've teleported me to this small world, what is your purpose?" Zhuowen had already calmed down. He could not see through this Black King. He suspected that this fellow's strength was at the peak of the Master of Heaven Ascension. Against such a great expert, even if he used all his strength, he would not be a match for this fellow. Furthermore, whether or not he could enter the prehistoric celestial domain depended on the Black King, so Zhuowen did not plan to fall out with this fellow. "I admit that I deliberately lured you into the massacre celestial domain. However, I was entrusted by someone. I will compensate you for this." The Black King said helplessly. "Entrusted by someone? Who is it?" Zhuowen asked with a vigilant expression. "You should know this person as well. It's that old fellow, the 3 pure ones. This old fellow said that he was trying to test you, so he set you up." Chapter 3207. Controlling Demons and Monsters. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes at the mention of the 3 pure ones. He knew that the 3 pure ones mentioned by the Black King were the Taoist 3 pure ones in the Xianmi heavenly domain. The Taoist 3 pure ones merged into one in the Huaxia heavenly domain and called himself Lao Zi. After the Taoist Tai Ching merged with the Shang Qing and the Yu Qing, he said that he hid in the Huaxia heavenly domain because he was seriously injured. After he recovered his strength, he returned to the Xianmi heavenly domain. However, Zhuowen had been in the Xianmi heavenly domain for so many years, but he had never heard of any traces of the 3 pure ones. Zhuowen had guessed where the 3 pure ones were. It was probably the heaven-accessing secret land that Ma Yujie had mentioned to him before. "Did the 3 pure ones ask you to lure me into the slaughter heavenly domain to train me? Didn't they know that the slaughter heavenly domain was full of dangers? What if I died there or couldn't get out?" Zhuowen said in an unfriendly tone. He had something important to do in the untainted heavenly domain. Now, he had been delayed by the Taoist Tai Ching and the Black King. The Black King rubbed his hands and said with a smile, "Of course we thought about that. I even made a bet with the 3 pure ones about it." "What bet?" Zhuowen had a bad feeling and asked. "We bet that you could survive in the slaughter heavenly domain for a month. If you could, the 3 pure ones would win. If you couldn't, I would win. Unfortunately, not only did you survive a month, but you also got out of the slaughter heavenly domain. Alas, I'm so disappointed." The Black King sighed as he spoke, as if Yun coming out alive was bad news for him. Zhuowen was speechless as he looked at the Black King, who was constantly sighing with emotion. He had the guts to go up and beat this guy up. However, Yun resisted the impulse. He knew that the Black King's strength was mysterious. If he acted impulsively, it was hard to tell who would be beaten up. Then, you sent me to this small world to silence me? Zhuowen's muscles tensed up as he stared at the Black King with a cold look in his eyes. Regardless of whether it was the Black King in front of him or the mysterious three pure ones, he did not know their specific intentions, nor did he know why they were looking for him. However, he knew that nothing good would come out of it. The Black King hurriedly waved his hand and said, "How is that possible? What I, the Black King, hate the most is bullying the weak. You are so weak, how can I be in the mood to fight you? This time, I called you over mainly to compensate you." Compensation? Zhuowen frowned. You have a lot of secrets on you. Not only did he have the Ho-E Divine Bow and Ho-E Divine Arrow, but he also had the Yama Demon Portrait, a top-tier divine artifact, and the Pangus Sacred Body. In this expanse of the starry sky, it's practically impossible to find a second person who possesses such fortune like you. The Black King shook his head and looked at Zhuowen with eyes full of envy. Zhuowen's pupils constricted as he stared at the Black King. He was the only one who knew these secrets. How did the Black King know them so clearly? I've seen your performance in the Massacre Celestial Realm. If I still can't see these things on you, then I can only say that I'm blind. But don't worry, I don't care about these things. I won't compete with a junior like you. The Black King looked at Zhuowen with amusement. Zhuowen looked at the Black King solemnly. When he saw that the Black King did not mention the mysterious stone he had obtained, he knew that the Black King did not know about the mysterious stone in his possession. Of course, Zhuowen knew that if the Black King knew that the mysterious stone contained the primordial technique, which defied the heavens and surpassed this expanse of the starry sky, he would not be so calm. Fortunately, the primordial technique was only a stream of information that existed in the primordial stone. Moreover, it was in the primordial language. Even if the Black King saw it, he would not be able to understand it. Therefore, Yun was not afraid of the Black King questioning him. After all, this thing was of little value to the Black King if he could not understand it, let alone cultivate it. How are you going to compensate me? Zhuowen calmed down and asked in a low voice. The Black King grinned and said, That's simple. You should have opened the second layer of the Yama Ghost diagram, right? In the second layer of the Yama Demon diagram, there are 4 terrifying ghosts, namely, Qi, Mei, Wang and Liang. These 4 ghosts were nurtured by the previous master of the Yama Ghost diagram, the Yama Ghost King, for countless years. Each of them has the strength of a mid-stage heaven-piercing master. You are still too weak to control the Yama Ghost King. However, I can help you strengthen your control over these 4 ghosts and make them work for you. Hearing this, Zhuowen's heart trembled. When he had opened the second layer of the Yama Ghost diagram, a terrifying ghost had rushed out and destroyed the troublesome green skeleton. At that time, he had guessed that the ghost's strength was at least at the early stage of the heaven-piercing master realm. It seemed like his guess was right. Moreover, there were 4 of them at once. If he could control the Yama Ghost King, wouldn't it mean that he would have 4 mid-stage heaven-piercing masters as his henchmen? If Senior can help me control the Yama Ghost King, Junior will be eternally grateful. Yun cupped his fists and bowed to the Black King. He knew that the Black King was taking the initiative to express goodwill, so he naturally could not put on a high and mighty attitude. The Black King chuckled and waved his hand, saying, No need to be so polite. Take out the Yama Ghost diagram and open the second layer. Release the Yama Ghost diagram and let the Yama Ghost King out. This king will teach those 4 ghosts a lesson. Hearing this, Zhuowen did not hesitate and took out the Yama Ghost diagram. With a thought, he opened the second layer of the Yama Ghost diagram. Suddenly, billowing black smoke spread out, and Zhuowen's face turned pale. Opening the second layer of the Yama Ghost diagram had a great impact on Zhuowen's divine soul. Fortunately, after Zhuowen's Pangus sacred body had advanced, his divine soul had become much stronger. Although it was a little difficult to open the second layer, he could still hold on. Like ferocious ghosts, 4 black shadows suddenly rushed out of the opening of the Yama ghost diagram. As soon as the 4 black shadows appeared, a terrifying pressure shrouded the surroundings, causing the pressure on the surrounding earth to increase by hundreds and thousands of times. The 4 ferocious ghosts locked their scarlet eyes on Zhuowen as soon as they appeared. Then, they rushed toward Zhuowen with the same target. Their killing intent surged toward Zhuowen like a tide. Zhuowen's face changed slightly. These 4 Yama ghost kings were indeed difficult to tame. They wanted to kill their master as soon as they appeared. For little ghosts, how dare you be so arrogant in front of me? Get the hell over here. The Black King, who was not far away, snorted coldly. A sound wave swept over like a ripple. Suddenly, the entire space seemed to have frozen. The strong pressure surged like a tide. Zhuowen's body trembled. Under the pressure, he could not move. Fear appeared in his eyes. The Black King was too terrifying. With just a snort, the entire space seemed to have frozen. His body was suppressed and he could not move. Moreover, he realized that the Black King was not targeting him, but the 4 Yama ghost kings. In other words, just the aftermath of the attack was enough to make him sit and wait for death. How powerful must the Black King be to do that? The 4 Yama ghost kings were originally flying in the air and rushing toward Zhuowen. Unfortunately, they were affected by the Black King's power and were all frozen in the air. They could not move at all. The Black King slowly came to the side of the 4 Yama ghost kings. One of his black claws gently touched the back of a ghost's head. Immediately, a black thread floated out from the back of the ghost's head and fell into the Black King's hand. Chapter 3208. The Black King's bargaining chip. Black King held the 4 strands of black threads in his hand and threw them to Zhuowen, saying, "These are the ghost tendons of the Qi Mei Liang and Wang Liang, which is equivalent to half of their lives. You can use these ghost tendons to control them. Refine these ghost tendons into your spirit. This way, you can stimulate them with just a thought and reach the level of controlling the demons and monsters." Zhuowen took the ghost tendons and heard the Black King's voice. He also realized that the Black King's terrifying pressure had disappeared from his body. He looked at the motionless demons and monsters in the sky and cupped his hands at the Black King. Then, he sat cross-legged on the ground and began to refine them. What surprised him was that although the ghost tendons looked strange, they were easy to refine. He knew that the Black King must have done something to them. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to refine them so easily. 4 hours later, the 4 ghost tendons were completely refined by Zhuowen and integrated into his spirit. At this moment, Zhuowen felt that he no longer feared the 4 demons and monsters in front of him. Instead, he felt that he had full control over them. As long as he wanted to, he could make these 4 demons and monsters bow down to him. "Kid, are you done refining them?" the Black King asked with a chuckle as he leaned against a weathered cliff. When he saw Zhuowen open his eyes, he asked. Zhuowen nodded, his eyes flashing. "Since you're done refining them, I'll leave these 4 guys to you. Let's see if you can handle them well." The Black King chuckled, and the terrifying pressure on the 4 demons and monsters receded like the tide. The 4 demons and monsters, who had been frozen in midair, let out ferocious roars the moment the pressure receded. They all flew toward Zhuowen. These 4 demons and monsters seemed to have no sense of reason, but they were not stupid. They knew that the Black King was too terrifying, so they consciously did not provoke the Black King. Instead, they vented their anger on Zhuowen. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes as he stared at the 4 monsters who were lunging at him crazily. With a thought in his mind, he tore apart the 4 ghost tendons in his divine soul. Instantly, the 4 demons that were originally pouncing toward Zhuowen had a splitting headache. They fell from the sky and crashed heavily onto the ground. They hugged their heads and kept rolling on the ground, letting out owl-like howls. Zhuowen constantly urged his divine soul to tear the ghost tendons. The 4 demons and monsters cried out in pain, their voices sinister and mournful. Finally, a ghost knelt in front of Zhuowen and continuously kowtowed to Zhuowen. Finally, it let out a whimper and actually begged for mercy from Zhuowen. Plop, plop, Plop. The other 3 ghosts also knelt on the ground and kowtowed fiercely to Jun. The pain of having their ghost tendons torn apart was too terrifying. They could not bear it at all. Moreover, they also knew that the ghost tendons were controlled by this human. It was equivalent to having half of their lives in his hands. With a thought, this human could crush half of their lives. They wanted to live, so they had no choice but to submit. After realizing this fact, the 4 ghosts were no longer as rebellious as they were before. Juan waved his sleeve and the 4 ghosts turned into 4 black shadows and were sucked into the Yama ghost picture. He knew that after these 4 ghosts recognized their master, they would not dare to disobey his orders again. If they dared to disobey, he would not hesitate to tear the ghost tendons. This was his determination to the 4 ghosts. He knew very well that these 4 ghosts were all ruthless masters who feared nothing. If he was not more ruthless than these ghosts, he would suffer a calamity. Thank you, Senior. After putting away the Yama ghost picture, Yuan cupped his hands towards the Black King. These words were sincere. Hee, I said that I would compensate you. Naturally, I will do it. Moreover, this is just a small matter to me. The Black King said indifferently. Juan smiled embarrassedly and took out 2 Ho Yi's godly arrows from the outside world. He said, Senior, after all, these Ho Yi's godly arrows are the divine weapons of the great shaman Ho Yi. However, they do not seem to be as powerful as expected. Yuan felt that the Ho Yi's godly arrows were not fully unleashed. He felt that the golden crow's blood on the surface of the Ho Yi's godly arrows were causing trouble. He planned to ask the Black King to completely remove the golden crow's blood on the surface of the Ho Yi's godly arrows. The surface of your Ho Yi's godly arrows is contaminated by the golden crow's blood. Its power is sealed in the golden crow's blood. Naturally, it cannot unleash much of its power. Right? It's the same for your Ho Yi's godly bow, the Black King said indifferently. Zhuan chuckled. He licked his lips and said, Senior, removing the golden crow's blood should be a small matter for you, right? Can you help me remove the golden crow's blood? The Black King's face sank. He said with some displeasure, Kid, don't push your luck. I was already very displeased because you lost to that old bastard, the 3 purities. I've already shown great kindness by helping you tame your demons. You still want me to help you remove the golden crow's blood on your Ho Yi's godly arrows and godly bow? How can there be such a good deal? Zhuan was slightly embarrassed. The Black King was right. After all, the Black King had already done enough to help him tame his demons. Asking for more would be a little too much. Kid, actually, it's not impossible for me to help you remove the golden crow's blood on your Ho Yi's godly bow and godly arrows. I can even tell you where the other 8 Ho Yi's godly arrows are. However, there's no such thing as a free lunch in this world. The Black King rubbed his hands together and revealed a rather vulgar smile. What do you mean? Zhuan's gaze was calm. He knew that the Black King wanted to raise a condition. It's very simple. I heard that you have the Secretary of Heavenly Divination with you. That item is related to the power of destiny. I'm very interested in that item. If you can give me a copy of the Secretary of Heavenly Divination, I can help you remove the golden crow's blood. The Black King rubbed his hands together as anticipation appeared in his eyes. Zhuan sighed in his heart. He knew that the Black King would raise a condition, but he didn't expect it to be the Secretary of Heavenly Divination. Speaking of which, the Secretary of Heavenly Divination was given to Zhuan after he mysteriously became the sect master of the Giant Spirit sect. Later on, he comprehended the Secretary of Heavenly Divination and combined his space-time energy to create the Destiny Space-Time Annihilation. Speaking of which, the predecessor of the Destiny Space-Time Annihilation was the first ability that Zhuan created, the Purple Sun Above the Sea. The Purple Sun Above the Sea was a powerful ability that combined space-time energy and 9th-level Dao insights. In the Destiny Space-Time Annihilation, one could see the shadow of the former ability, the Purple Sun Above the Sea. Since then, he didn't really comprehend the Secretary of Heavenly Divination. Now that the Black King brought it up, he recalled the Secretary of Heavenly Divination. Just removing the Golden Crow's blood isn't enough to exchange for the Secretary of Heavenly Divination. Zhuan's gaze was solemn. He could see the desire in the Black King's eyes. He knew that the Secretary of Heavenly Divination was definitely not simple. Even an existence at the Black King's level desired it so much. After all, that item was related to the power of destiny. I can also tell you the location of the other 8 Hou-Yi divine arrows, the Black King continued. It's still not enough. Jun shook his head. The Black King frowned. He took a deep look at Zhuowen and continued, I can also provide you with clues to the location of the 3 ancestral shaman corpses. This is the highest bargaining chip I can offer. Chapter 3209. Heaven accessing place. Ever since his Pangu sacred body had been promoted to 7 stars, Jun realized that it would be much more difficult to promote his Pangu sacred body than before. It could be said that his Pangu sacred body would not have a chance to be promoted without the ancient sorcery insects. What he lacked now was the ancient sorcery insects. Now that the Black King could provide him with the location of the 3 ancient sorcery insects, how could he not be excited? If he could integrate the 3 ancient sorcery insects at once, Jun believed that he could directly promote his Pangu sacred body from the early stage of 7 stars to 8 stars. The Black King laughed and said, Little guy, is my bargaining chip enough? As long as you give me a copy of the Secretary of Divination, I will give you the location of the 3 ancient sorcery insects I know. And I will also help you clean the golden crow's blood on the surface of the Hou-Yi divine bow and divine arrow. I will also tell you the location of the other 8 Hou-Yi divine arrows. These will be my gifts to you. Zhuowen nodded and took out the Secretary of Divination from the macro world. After making a copy of it, he gave the copy to the Black King. Zhuowen knew that the gap between him and the Black King was too big. If the Black King wanted to rob him, it would only take a thought. In front of such a strong person, Zhuowen really did not need to hide anything from the Secretary of Divination. The Black King was very satisfied with Zhuowen's straightforward approach. The Black King took the copy of the Secretary of Divination and observed it repeatedly. After confirming that there was no problem with the Secretary of Divination, he said to Zhuowen, Little guy, take out your Hou-Yi divine bow and Hou-Yi divine arrow. Zhuowen nodded and took out the Hou-Yi divine bow and Hou-Yi divine arrow and handed them to the Black King. The Black King took the Hou-Yi divine bow and Hou-Yi divine arrow and observed them for a while. Then he spread out his right claw and a black flame burned in his palm. The flame was dark and deep. The Black King put the Hou-Yi divine bow and Hou-Yi divine arrow into the black flame. Zhuowen could clearly see the blood stains on the surface of Hou-Yi's divine bow and divine arrow gradually fade away after they were put into the dark fire. They began to return to their original appearance. The black flames slowly dissipated. The divine bow and divine arrow floating above the Black King's palm were no longer stained with blood. Instead, they emitted a golden color. From afar, this golden color seemed to be emitting golden light under the reflection of the light. What shocked Zhuowen even more was that at this moment, the completely new Hou-Yi's godly bow and godly arrow actually emanated an unprecedentedly terrifying pressure. This pressure was far greater than the Hou-Yi divine bow and divine arrow from before. It was like some sort of terrifying power had suddenly awakened from the bow and arrow. Take it. The Black King handed the brand new Hou-Yi divine bow and divine arrow to Zhu. Zhuowen took over the Hou-Yi divine bow and the 2 Hou-Yi divine arrows. He took out an arrow and placed it on the bowstring. Instantly, Zhuowen sensed an extremely powerful and terrifying pressure surging over. He pulled the bowstring to a full moon and actually found it difficult to do so. An even more terrifying killing intent condensed within the divine arrow. In addition to the killing intent, Zhuowen also discovered a sharpness even more terrifying than the killing intent that filled the tip of the divine arrow. The divine arrow was shot out by Zhuowen like a streak of light towards the horizon. He could clearly see that wherever the divine arrow passed, space would shatter and the laws would be annihilated. The divine arrow fell extremely far away. The instant it hit the ground, it exploded loudly. The entire wasteland world trembled. The tremors became more and more terrifying. Countless cracks appeared on the ground. Zhuowen saw that in the distance, the terrifying explosion took the shape of an oval and spread out in all directions. Accompanying the explosion was a huge mushroom cloud that rose into the sky. It was extremely spectacular. The ground cracked open. Streams of lava rushed out of the ground like a wave, wreaking havoc in the wasteland world. Damn, the power of this Ho-E divine arrow is actually so terrifying? Thuan was shocked. Before the golden crow blood on the surface of the Ho-E divine arrow was cleaned, it could only injure an early-stage Heaven Ascension Master at most. But now, if the Ho-E divine arrow was used at full power, it could instantly kill a mid-stage Heaven Ascension Master and seriously injure a late-stage Heaven Ascension Master. But the energy consumption is too terrifying. I'm about to be sucked dry. A trace of blood flowed out of the corner of Zhuowen's mouth. His footsteps were weak as he revealed a bitter smile. That arrow just now had drained almost 80% of his energy. The price of shooting that arrow was still very high. Kid, you really have guts. You used the full power of the Ho-E divine arrow right from the start. The Ho-E divine arrow is now in its complete state. Next time, you don't have to pull the bowstring to a full moon. Unless you're dealing with a terrifying expert like a late-stage Heaven Ascension Master. The Black King clicked his tongue in amazement as he crossed his arms. Zhuan put away the scattered Ho-E divine arrows and was extremely satisfied. The power of the Ho-E divine arrow was very suitable for him now. Senior, can you tell me the location of the other 8 Ho-E divine arrows and the 3 ancestral witch corpses? Zhuan looked at the Black King and asked. The Black King laughed as he stretched out his right hand and opened it in front of Zhuan. A black jade floated above his palm. This black jade was very exquisite. Its surface was filled with patterns of dragons and phoenixes, and it emitted a mysterious aura. This black jade records the exact location of the other 8 Ho-E divine arrows. Moreover, these 8 Ho-E divine arrows are all in the primitive heavenly realm. Aren't you going to the primitive heavenly realm this time? You can collect them on the way. The Black King said as he handed the black jade to Zhuan. Zhuan took the black jade and checked it. He didn't say anything and raised his head to look at the Black King again. As for the 3 ancestral witch corpses, I can only give you some clues. I heard that there are 3 ancestral witch corpses hidden in the witch tribe. As for who they are, I don't know. If you want the 3 ancestral witch corpses, you can only enter the witch tribe to explore. However, the witch tribe is the largest tribe in the primitive heavenly realm. You have to be careful when you enter. The Black King reminded. Thuan was surprised. He didn't expect that the largest tribe in the primitive heavenly realm, the witch tribe, would hide 3 ancestral witch corpses. Senior, thank you for telling me. If there's nothing else, I think you should let me go to the primitive heavenly realm, right? Zhuan cupped his hands and said, I say, little guy, why are you in such a hurry to leave? Can't you stay with me for a while? The Black King said unhappily when he saw that Zhuan was in such a hurry to leave. Zhuan was expressionless as he said indifferently, I really have something urgent to do, so I can't stay here for long. Please forgive me. The Black King shrugged and said, there's one last thing. After you finish this, I'll let you leave this world. As he spoke, the Black King took out a glittering and translucent badge and handed it to Zhuan. The surface of the badge was densely covered with lines, revealing a mysterious aura. What's this? Zhuan took the badge in surprise and looked at the Black King in confusion. The Black King said in a low voice, this is the sky-reaching badge. It's a sign that you can enter the sky-reaching place. The 3 pure ones asked me to give it to you. We all know your strength. You are qualified to enter the sky-reaching place. The sky-reaching place. Zhuan narrowed his eyes. It was not the first time that he had heard about the sky-reaching place. Ma Yujie had told him that it was the place where all the experts at the sky-reaching realm gathered in this starry sky. It was also the most advanced place in this starry sky. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.